Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard, and it is your host, Demetrius Villa. On this, it's gonna be a little bit of a chill journey, and you're gonna have to mind with the noise in the background. Of all the days, the AC has to blow up. It has to be today. I mean, not today, but it was like a couple days ago when the AC... long story short, the capacitor in the AC blew up. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait till Monday to get a replacement for that and put that in. And for now, I got a 200 IQ setup of trying to pipe in some westerly cold wind air coming into here. So we're trying to keep it all nice and cool. So again, this is going to be a nice chill stream. You know, I would dress up nicer, but it's a little bit too hot for the sport coat. But you know, I got it here. I'm trying to be all nice and chill. So hello Ethan, Armitage, hello Grambo. Again, this is going to be a nice chill stream. It'll go on for how long it goes on, depending on when we get tired of talking to stuff. I know we're going to somebody is going to come up with the elephant in the room this week, and maybe we will all talk about it. But for now, it's just the stage is open. So if anybody is in the Discord, if you want to put your hand up, we will let you in on stage. Again, this is a chill stream, so welcome to the lounge. Hope you guys like the setup. Enjoy it. Hello CTR Lee. Hello Grambo. Hello Adam. Ruben probably was going to join. Unfortunately, he's not feeling too well, so hopefully prayers for him that he can start to feel a little bit better. Darius may join in later. He's trying to get into Discord, so we may have a co-host in that comes in. But anyway, guys, it's been a chill week. Trying to relax. Even though it is not that chill right now. Yes, the elephant in the room, Nicholas Mahoney, is what is going on in Texas right now. And again, if you guys want to, we can talk about that. No worries. Again, if you're listening right now, go ahead, like this video so it helps around with the algorithm. You know the whole drill if you watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos. You nubs, yeah, my day's been alright so far. I slept in a little bit more. I took a cold ice bath yesterday. The first time I ever did. Just did like a ghetto ice bath. Basically had a whole bunch of ice cubes and emptied out all the ice in the ice dispenser to try to chill down. Because it is right now, it is 84 degrees. Let me see if I can, my little IKEA clock doesn't want to work. There we are. It is 84 degrees right now. Yeah, right in here. And I got a workout timer here, 45 seconds. Yes, this train layout is pretty nice. So I hope you guys like the what we put out over here. This is not a real train, obviously. If you can look in the background, there's obvious 3D assets and stuff like that over here. Let me see if I can just like zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see. But this. If I had, I wouldn't say unlimited budget because it's not unlimited budget. But if I could go ahead and make any sort of high-speed rail service, this would be the not the dining car. This would be the bar car. There would be a dining car, and then there would be the bar car. Okay? Because I think, I think it's elegant to have a bar car. And as if you guys were looking at the community chat, I'm trying to use that a little bit more on YouTube. I have been perusing this book. I've had this. Actually, Holly was the one that bought this for me when we went to the Flagler Museum down in West Palm Beach. If you guys are in Florida and you haven't been to the Flagler Museum, Whitehall, which is Flagler's mansion that he had down there, go ahead and go there. I've been there a couple of times. We've taken a whole bunch of videos and footage there. It's a great place to go. Honestly, it's really nice. But yeah, this is Again, chill stream. If you guys have any questions or anything you want to chat, put your hands up and come on aboard and we'll go ahead and chat. Again, I would say drinks are on the house, but unfortunately I can't go to everybody's domicile and give you all drinks. Hopefully, maybe in the future, 20, 30 years from now, I'll finally own a rail service and we'll all meet up, IRL and actually have some drinks on a nice train over here. But yeah. Thinking something more in line to the train sheet, Shikishima or Kyushu 7 stars. Yeah, it's something along those lines. Yeah, those very nifty trains. It was, let me see, it was something over here in Dining by Rail. Just in the preface that caught my eye, and it's been in my head about civilized transportation. Yeah, here we go. A book celebrating this, one of the high points of civilized transportation, is appropriate if only to preserve an important aspect of genuine American fare. It really is just a different time in America that this was, and just the logistics behind it. I mean, when it started out, it was pretty wild. To have, you didn't have dining in cars. People would basically like roadside restaurants right now. If you go pull off on the side and go to Cracker Barrel, which Cracker Barrel is a civilized restaurant. If you don't go to Cracker Barrel and you don't like Cracker Barrel, there was something wrong with you. But people would basically run out of the trains and go ahead and fill up these cafeterias to go ahead and the train would wait like 30, 45 minutes and then people would get back on. As time went on, things got a little bit more, started to get more civilized. This was your, the person giving out, not giving out, but getting your refreshments and condiments and your newspapers and stuff like that. That's a cartoon like a Puck sort of drawing of what it kind of looked like. Is this Puck? I think it was. I don't know. Not quite sure. It's definitely a Puckish sort of thing. But yeah, and then things started to get a little bit better. You still had services where they were still doing this up until around the 1910s, the 1920s was when, the golden age of rail. Honestly, that was the peak. Honestly. Yeah, so we can talk about Texas. But right now, I think we had some hands up. David Mitchell, our regular, is on here, so we can bring him up. And if you, and here's the thing, guys. If you want to debate something, or if you think that there's somebody else also in the chat that you have some ties with, there's something in the ARC Grand Central Discord, we can bring him up and we can have a full-on conversation. This is supposed to be a chill thing. All right, so David Mitchell, we're going to put you on board. Yeah, CTR. Yeah, the whole thing of you're a communist if you like trains. That's complete BS.
Hey, Demetrius. Hey, man.
What's up, David? Welcome aboard.
Hey, I think I done live streaming myself, man, about 5 minutes ago, actually.
5 minutes ago? Live streaming yourself? So what is this, a double live stream here that we're doing?
No, I think I done 5 minutes ago. My live stream ended 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
Hey, that would have been cool, but, I don't want to steal your thunder,
No worries. I completely understand. Look at that. I just got that perfectly on top, that beer right there. Oh, man.
But, yeah, I'm going to bring that up. You remember when I was talking about last week about how we could do rail here in Charleston?
Yeah. And actually, it's funny because, I was just reminded reading this book that the best friend of Charleston was the first passenger train in America. So, I mean, you guys not having, consistent rail transportation is kind of a spit in the face to your history.
I know. And saying it, even worse, is that the Greyhound buses and the airline, they are the one who screwed everything up here,
Yeah, that's part of it. And like I mentioned in the last stream, and I've mentioned to people, when it comes to the word conspiracy, right? You can be charged by the United States government guilty of conspiracy to commit X, Y, or Z act of, whether it be murder or this or that. And GM, Firestone, Standard Oil, and several other companies were guiltily charged of a conspiracy to buy up all the streetcars, especially in Los Angeles, where they had a massive amount of mileage of streetcars and trolleys, to destroy them and go ahead and put in, buses where all these companies would profit from it. So it's obviously for real. It's obviously a thing.
And here's something I realized when I was looking at it. I noticed that we could have had high-speed rail from Charlotte all the way down to Charleston. Like, we could have had it,
Yeah.
Look, with Charlotte being the biggest city in North Carolina, like, we could have, like, high-speed train coming from North Carolina to the South Carolina capital, then down to the coast, and then all the way down to Savannah, Georgia,
Yeah,
like,
and, it's...
It could have worked because Charleston, Columbia, even Savannah got a high enough population for the vice versa fact up and down, Like, you don't have to have over 1 million people to have high-speed rail.
No, and
Am I right?
that's yeah, that's a thing that people always get wrong. It's like, oh, we don't have the density, we don't have the population. We didn't have the population neither at all back then either, compared to today, but we just have a lot of density now. Of course, there are factors like suburbanization that do kick in the face of what we should have natural density in urban cities and stuff like that. And look,
Yeah.
there are people who don't like the cities, and I'm absolutely in agreement with that. I'm not a fan of living in the city, especially nowadays. Right now, it's kind of an awful deal that you get living in a city. But kind of a part of that is that you have this fake sort of living situation where people think, oh, I can get the convenience of a city, but I can get the space of a rural area, and that's the whole thing of a suburb, and you're just getting the worst of the two. That's
Oh, God. I see a Chicago Rail fan waiting in line. With him, what Russian?
oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah, and again, so we're this whole thing this is the first time we're doing this sort of lounge thing. So if you want to bring anybody in the audience and just have like an open discussion about something,
Yeah, let's bring Chicago Rail fan in.
all right, sure thing. Okay, let's go ahead and well, if Chicago Rail fan, if again, I'm not going to bring in somebody. Just if you have your hand up and you want to come into the stream, go on ahead and we'll get you in. Saimo,
He probably still out of country. Like, I'll be honest. Like, when he sent me a text, or not a text, but a message, he told me he was out of country.
yeah,
Not North Charlton Rail fan, but Chicago Rail fan.
yeah. Saimo has his hand raised. Would you like to bring him on?
Oh yeah, we could bring him on.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and bring him on, invite to speak, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, but all right.
Morning.
Well,
Yes.
Hello.
hello, man. Welcome to the
Mhm.
stream.
There we
Yeah,
are. Put this over here so we can all see.
Right now, since last week, uh, I'm from the new line of the MRT is partially open, so and the reception is quite good actually. And also last week, you said something regarding the Chinese for the Kuala Lumpur Singapore high speed rail that was cancelled.
Yeah, I remember talking about that. Yes.
Like, oh my
Because-
wife. Hi.
Yeah. Remember, guys, one at a time, and
Oh.
you can move back and forth between the stage
Up.
and the audience if you don't feel like speaking or taking a break. So, let's.
Like, I'll be honest, Dimitri. Like, Chinese. I'll be honest. You guys are pretty fast at building high speed rail. That thing, like, we used to been able to do something like that back in the day, but now with all the stupid laws and stuff, it kind of screwed us head over heels.
To be honest, when regarding the one from Kuala Lumpur to Singapore, that one hasn't been tendered out yet, so it wasn't been confirmed whether it's the Chinese or the Japanese. But there is actually one project actually called East Coast Railing. That is still in progress, and that's the one that the Chinese are building. So it's a completely different project. One of the reason the Chinese has an advantage here in Malaysia is because they are the only one that has a train assembly plant in a place called Batu Gajah. And because if for the other rail rolling stock owners, they actually needed to import here, but for the Chinese, they have their own factory here, so that's why they had some kind of advantage in terms of rolling stock.
Yeah, and that's been the main advantage of the Chinese rail company is that they have a lot more imports and they have a lot more projects going on in a lot of countries and let's say South or Southeast Asia as well as in Africa, some places in Europe and in South America. Whereas for the Japanese, their only high-speed rail project outside of Japan has mainly been in Taiwan. And everything else that they've been trying to do outside of Japan has not turned out very well for several other reasons. Which, if you guys want to talk about what's going on in Texas, I can go down to there.
Yeah, that a total crap storm on its own right there.
Yeah. So let's bring that
But
up.
then again, okay, thank you. Although to be fair, the Indian one is progressing very well. The India High Speed Rail, that part
I,
is alright.
Yeah,
But
I'll
that
be
has a
honest.
chance of happening over in India. You were saying, David? I'm sorry.
do you
Like, I'll be
do
honest.
you
Like
think
Africa already
so?
have high
Right now,
speed rail. Am I right? Like they already have high speed rail in Africa. Meaning we're far behind. We're far behind a third world country that already have high speed rail. Am I right?
I mean, are we even a third? Are we not even a first world country at this point anymore? I think's not.
We're
You
probably
know,
not because of how everything is going.
and,
to be fair,
go ahead,
to
go
be
ahead.
fair, our country doesn't have town elections or electing mayors. Our only representative is only for the state and the federal. So in a way, America is still a first world country in terms of democracy and other stuff, and in terms of accountability, is still much more transparent than some of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
I
Alright.
have to agree on that.
yeah. Anyway, we do have Chicago
Okay,
Rail
thank you.
fan on here, and let me see. We got a okay. Oh, I think Samuel disconnected. We can bring him on, and let's invite Chicago Rail fan to speak over here.
All right, here come the bees.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, amigo. ¿Cómo estás, man?
Muy bien. Ya me regresó from my away vacation, but oh yeah, I forgot what were we talking about.
We were talking about a whole bunch of things. We went into talking about the Singapore Malaysia high speed rail, and we've been inching around Texas too.
Passenger rail system.
Well, you know, David, if you wanted a passenger rail system in Charleston, why don't you build the Rebel train station?
Oh, hey you guys, can you please stop with that meme?
Which one?
Chicago,
okay,
not
it's an
Chicago.
inside joke.
It an inside joke about me on my live streaming team where they call the Ravenel train tape.
Ah.
Yeah, it kind of originated from my cast.
Yep. High cap. High cap was one who did it. Like, ironically, we used to have a train tape in here in Ravenel all the way up until about the 60s, you know? And the train tracks here used to split. Like, one used to head Lockport to the coast, and the other one used to kept on following the original, the A line, you know, where Amtrak followed with the Palmetto and the Silver Meteor.
You mean
Like-
that spot you're a real fan?
Yep. Like that area down near Train Depot, that Train Depot was the train station. Like, we used to have like commuter trains. Like, we had commuter trains all the way up until 1964. Like, when all the partner service started going down. Heck, we had a Union State in downtown Charleston, and that was burnt down by arson and covered up. You know? Straight up covered up.
Interesting.
Yeah, what was that? Wait, so was that? I'm not familiar with this story. So was it really confirmed that it was arson? That they burnt down the station? Was it just? And that's the thing. It's like, was it like an actual act of arson just randomly, or was it, let's say, for example,
arson because where the fire started, there were no electrical or any flammable equipment where the fire started.
Right, that makes sense.
And thing is, they were going to say it was arson, and then they covered it up. Like, I know people like it because I'm a born local and native, and when you're a native, you get to know what go on in your hometown that other people who are not from there don't know about. Am I right?
You're obviously going to know it better on.
Yeah, and thing is, they covered it up. Heck, and when you look up the Wikipedia about it, well, I don't trust Wikipedia anyway because some of the stuff on there is wrong. That they make a page talk about how Jason burned down with total bullshit, and they're saying that
All right.
the Amtrak station was moved over to North Charleston and saying it was a better spot when in reality, North Charleston is not a good area to put a train station in.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. One other thing, David, just, again, I understand, we can all get heated up, and I'm really bad when it comes to trying to curb my cursing. But you guys gotta again
sorry
keep it
about
on the
that.
stream. Let's try to keep it a little bit, censor friendly. I look
Yeah.
if it wasn't for YouTube being as pansy as they were, I wouldn't care. Honestly,
Oh, yeah.
but it's just just the way of it is, and we're trying to keep the
Mr.
channel just a
Aaron,
little bit more professional. You know what I'm saying? So that's
You're
that's
right.
kind of the thing.
Well, I'll bring up Karen Susan.
Oh yeah, no, let's not get started on Susan over here. But what do you guys think of what's going on in Texas? With what's going on now. So let me just really quickly bring people in the audience of what's going on. So reportedly, like 2 weeks ago, a Spanish news station, La Información, I believe. They went ahead and put out that not only did the CEO of Texas Central Railways, Carlos Aguilar, went up and quit, but the entire upper management and direction basically up and left. So that's causing a little bit of dissension within the community as well. Is Texas, dead and gone for good? And I put in the Discord channel, I put the Spanish version, which I've read, and also the Gringo version, if you want to call it, in English, in here, so you guys can be able to read it on. I'll put the English version there for everybody to say. But yeah, I do like this, what they call Sudoku Judicial, or judicial Sudoku, of what it is. Basically what Texas is trying to do, Texas Central Railway, because it is in the United States pretty hard, if not impossible, to get these sort of projects going, which is what dissuades private investment and state funding to move these projects forward, which they would be very far forward and in between, much more beneficial to the state and its people, not just tax revenue or anything like that. Forget the tax revenue. We're talking about just movement of people. We're talking about better lifestyle choices and morale, building, etc., jobs, the whole 9 yards we're talking about. And this is just not a good thing that has happened in Texas.
I know, but just because it happened, it doesn't mean it's dead,
Yeah, and that's what I put out. Now we had like a little bit of a problem in the Facebook group, which is the Facebook group is kind of its own containment center. We all sort of know that.
And you remember the admin who was a spy in our group? You remember that admin in the Facebook group?
Yeah, and again, I try to, I'm not a fan at all of internet drama, so I just try to, if there's some sort of drama, I just go ahead and just get rid of it. I just try to pay no mind to it, honestly.
I called all the car and plane lovers in the group out, called them out. If they don't support train, they need to get the F out of there. I told them straight up in a
They like
post.
trains too. I like cars too.
Yeah, it's not wrong to like both. It's just we need a balance.
I'm talking about the ones who are in the group did the crap on the train.
Yeah, the guys that are obviously shilling for against rail transit and shilling for big oil and big airlines. Yeah.
Like I remember one of them managed to become an admin.
Yeah, I don't even know how that came about, honestly. How they became an admin.
I remember, I made the post, and then a couple hours later, it was poof, gone, deleted. Meaning there was someone in the group, I don't know which one was the admin, but I know what admin that removed it, who did not like train and did not like me calling it out, who supported cars, supported car transit and doesn't support train transit.
Yeah.
I traded a called out to Viet and said that we're sick and tired of your crap. Am I right?
No, I understand where you're coming from, but this this sort of thing that's going on with Texas. I mean, there's been a lot of shilling, especially from the oil groups, like Ben Lehman, who was the former judge in, I believe, Grimes County. He was a Grimes County judge over in Central Texas, and now he is a congressman in Texas, and he's been running on the whole thing of, land's rights and this and that, which, Land's
No,
right.
Demetrius, remember, it's Texas Central. It's not a railway.
Oh, it's not a railway, so it can't have eminent domain, which is why it's been stuck in legal limbo, or judicial Sudoku in a sense, trying to get all those letters. All those numbers lined up for everything to match up. But at this phrase, it's like committing Sudoku, honestly, because
There's
it's
a solution.
yeah.
Lay a foot of track, and then it'll be considered a railway because it has a foot of railroad track.
Yeah, honestly, I joked about that like 2 or 3 years ago about that when this first thing came up. It's like, go ahead and just lay like some 2 or 3 feet of track and just legalize your way through it. Just be really scummy about it. Because look, the other side is going to be as scummy as they can. They're not playing by the rules, and honestly, it's not honorable to play by the broken rule set in this country. It really isn't.
It's not, like, literally, you gotta play dirty in the country, like, you always have to play dirty.
Yeah, because the rules aren't, look, the rules are not set to, how would you say it? They're not set to benefit the country as a whole, right? They're set to benefit a few select group of people. So,
like, I'll be honest.
And that's obvious, it's at this rate.
Mm-hmm. And I hate to say it, it's going to take people getting sick and tired and starting to do like a whole civil war, like what happened in Russia with the Tsars, if you remember that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go into look, like the whole concept of a civil war in this country is definitely far more possible now than it was, let's say, 5 or 6 years ago. But definitely, we're not going to start a war because of high-speed rail or something like that. Or we can't get this transit line over here. It's time to go ahead and tar and feather the mayor and something like that. Honestly, that's kind of far beyond.
It would probably be over money and because of how the middle and lower class are being treated.
No, it's going to be. If you guys want my honest opinion, it's going to be over the food. That's what it is. You're seeing that right now in places like in Sri Lanka, and sooner or later, places like India, where the food supply has, it's depleted because of several stupid decisions by politicians. Like in Sri Lanka, they banned using fertilizer, which I understand the reason why they were trying to do it. From a generalized perspective, or how they were saying it's like, oh, we want to preserve the soil. It could have been for a whole bunch of different reasons. I'm not an expert in Sri Lankan politics, nor do I care to be. But
there is a certain type of people that are cognizant, and they are very snooty, and they hate meat.
I think it's just more to do, like for example, I think it was this week or last week, the Smithfield, the biggest Smithfield pork. I'm trying to remember the exact word, but the pork factory on it. Let's just put it that way. A pork factory distributor, and the biggest one they have, it's in California, has shut down because it's too expensive, or at least the official reason that they give, because that plant, the pork plant in California is the largest one in the country, and that's owned by a Hong Kong company, which at this rate, that's a Chinese company now, because Hong Kong has been taken over by China, and in effect, the Chinese Communist Party. So, could it be a way to destabilize the food and supply chain even further in America? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Union Pacific now, the largest freight railroad in America, has now stated to Flying J and a whole bunch of other, because Flying J, if for you guys you don't know, because my brother-in-law is a trucker, okay, so I'm very close to knowing how the trucking industry works, but the thing is, Flying J is a big place, okay, where a whole bunch of truckers go to fill up on gas, to go ahead, take a shower, go ahead, just sit back, lay back, relax, go to Denny's, eat something, and sit in their truck and wait their what they call their Obama break before they can go ahead and get trucking again. But Union Pacific has told us we're not going to be able to get in enough diesel on time, and with the with now the shortage of diesel emission fluid, now that's going to make things even worse.
Oh yeah. I hate to say it all because we decided we wanted to go over to cars and diesel power instead of wanting to do electricity and sticking to trains,
Yeah, I mean, and that's again, that was something that was done in conspiracy. Go ahead, Chicago Real Fan.
Wait, no, I just want to know what Dan said.
About why we couldn't take the trains and turn all over to electricity instead.
You mean electrify railroads?
Yeah, like, why couldn't we do that across the nation back when we had the chance to? Back
Did
in
you
the
get that
70s?
out of Alan Fisher's YouTube channel?
Maybe.
Are you becoming an Alan Fisher student now, David?
Oh. Hey, well, Dane is, I'll be honest, there's stuff that he said that is true. Like, literally, did think about shit, he's, oh, sorry, Dino.
I get it, man. Don't worry. Like, hopefully, like, YouTube doesn't, get on us for that. But go ahead.
The stuff that he's saying is so freaking true, you gotta think about it.
Like, for example, just again
like,
for audiences who are not, on the loop.
Like the 2-day shipping video, you remember the Amazon we need to change our 2-day shipping video?
Yeah.
Talk about how we need to change back from truck to trains.
Yeah, that's definitely part of that. There's something I've had on mind for like the last 2 years. And look, I've worked in Toyota. I've gotten my certification in Six Sigma, lean management, every single corporal buzzword in terms of manufacturing that is out there. But when it comes to that sort of thing and just-in-time delivery, that was basically started by Toyota for, lean manufacturing and management. The problem is that there's so many companies that have taken that and adapted it to a whole bunch of things that it wasn't meant to. So kind of mistakenly, not knowingly, Toyota kind of screwed the whole entire world over. Now, not like on purpose, like GM has, like, they have a pure chance, they have a predisposition to crushing things literally. How many things has GM, literally picked up, like streetcars, Corvette C4s, the GM EV1s, and crushed them, out of spite and out of their own sort of way to go ahead and profit. But Toyota, the thing that they've created, or their system, it wasn't meant to be like, for example, precision scheduled railroading, which is completely annihilating the freight railroads, basically for the short-term profit of a few baby boomer shareholders. And let's be honest, the people who are coming up with this, happen to be in that generation. It's not at all, yeah.
I'll be honest, if I was the governor of the United States, I would have cracked down on the shareholders. I would have just straight up cracked down on them, like trust busting them, making them pay back what they owe. Heck, I would be going after Wall Street. Let's be honest. It's exactly what the people on Wall Street.
Now, David, you're going a little too far. You might be an extremist here. You know what you're saying?
But am I right?
Yeah, no. Well, look, and that's the thing. Like for example, remember 10 years ago or like 12 years ago at this point, Occupy Wall Street. That was sort of a thing that kind of united both, I would say, far left and far right into saying, especially what happened, because the banking industry got away with, not literal murder, but they got away with so much of putting so many people into debt and getting away with these subprime mortgage loans, and they get, they get bailed out by the Federal Reserve and just printing out a whole bunch of money and giving it to them. And the same thing that happened, like when the whole GameStop stock market. It just goes to show you that the game is rigged. That these lending institutes and these financing firms can go ahead and short a stock more than the amount of stock that's available. And if random people go ahead on Reddit and conspire, that word again, to go ahead and buy up a whole bunch of stock to raise the price to get this company out of debt, but yet they go ahead and by the SEC, they bail them out. These people were going ahead and breaking the law to go ahead and short GameStop to basically nothing. And they're going after the people on Reddit and on 4chan and all these other places that went ahead to go ahead and get this. So if that same sort of thing is happening in the upper echelons of finance and everywhere else, you damn bet it's happening in places like, like in Texas or in Florida, and for rail projects, and it's been happening for the last 50, 60, 70 years.
Right.
We know it's happening.
All right, let me bring up Texas Central, and the people who are dead against it. My gut is telling me that the people who are doing stuff against it, try to stop it from happening, are doing some really shady illegal crap. Am I right?
What kind of legal stuff?
Demo, you want to bring it up with him?
I mean, there's a whole lot of things I would say that's immoral, but in terms of illegal, try to bring me up to speed on what's illegal.
Well, and I forgot it. Dang it.
All right, yeah. Remember, if we're gonna try to back up things over here, because it's a public forum, so we have to make sure that things are on.
I just had a brain fart. Ugh.
No, I understand. Anyway, there's a couple. There's a couple of people here in the audience. We can try, if anybody wants to jump down and back into the audience, and we can bring you on later, we can do that. But I'm again, this is the first time we're doing this sort of thing, so I'm trying to experiment over here.
Well, I'll be honest, I think did it great, Dimitri. Did something that I would have said you'd do more, trust me.
Yeah, we can make this a more regular thing of the lounge rather than talking about you. Because this is basically the only kind of news thing I kind of want to talk about, and nothing else, because honestly it's more or less the same sort of news.
Now I'll just bring that up in Florida with Brightline when they get to Orlando, and ironically they're ahead of schedule. Can you believe that?
Yeah, no, and I've said that before. Especially during the time of the coup, they took advantage of the less amount of traffic on the roads and went ahead and started building as fast as they could. After 2 or 3 months of the initial shutdown where everybody was scared that it's gonna kill everybody upon contact and stuff like that. Once people started to figure, especially after the protests during the peaceful protest time during the summer when things were burning down, people started to figure out, okay, if people are getting into large crowds and stuff like that, I think it's okay that we can start building and doing stuff again.
But I'll be honest, with them going to probably have trains up and running by this Christmas, that's going to be crazy, having that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think so.
Meaning, if they get trains fully up and running before the end of 2022, from Miami to Orlando with Brightline, that's going to be a big victory for the railroad community right there.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good. I definitely think once they do that, it's going to change really the way, again, because Brightline did it before when they started doing service, because people said, it's that level of cope. It's like, Brightline is never going to become a real thing. Oh, Brightline is never going to pass through committee. Oh, Brightline is never going to get the public bonds. Brightline is never going to open up its station. And, from there, it's like, you are here now. Brightline is never going to get to Orlando or start service in Orlando. And just the next list of cope that the opponents are really just going on, in the Treasure Coast. And that's the thing, a lot of those opponents will be, literally, gone by, 20 years or so, if Medicare doesn't keep them, artificially on life support, literally. But that's the thing.
I'll be honest. There is a changing point right there. We're at the peak right now before all of it are crumbling down with the boomers. Their reign is about to come crumbling down.
Yes and no. And I've said this in a couple of streams before. The problem is that you have the largest industry that's been getting the most amount of funding right now by the United States that people haven't really mentioned has been the pharmaceutical and medical industry. Yeah. And hey, we've been $5 trillion. Everybody talks about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have taken us $5 trillion in debt. Well, where did the other 25 go? And look at the last the big infrastructure bill. They were saying, we need community infrastructure. What was it? Human infrastructure that the Biden administration was talking about, and half the bill funding was basically Medicare funding for people over the age of 65. Mm-hmm. And for the excuse of saying, we need young people to get back to work, so we need their parents to be occupied, watching. They need to watch MSNBC and Fox News and the History Channel at 3 a.m. Watching Hitler versus aliens or something stupid like that on the History Channel. You know, some really BS thing. You know, it's
They
just.
do have an obsession over him, though.
Yeah, I know. It's like you know, it's like it's done and over with. Like, how many times is like, you know, are we gonna watch any more documentaries on that? It's like, you know, just focus on like other stuff that's going on. It's like that, you know, we've been done with that and over. It's you know, it's like people having an obsession over, let's say, it's, you know, I could understand the Vietnam War because there's still a lot of people alive from then. And, you know, I have a lot of family and friends that were, you know, veterans during the Vietnam War, but, you know, it's just like, you know, anyway.
Like, and I'll be honest, like, most of that money going to the older generation, and like, let's be honest, the only people that will benefit is the old geezer, the old Karens, the old Kevins.
Yeah, and let's try to, like, you know, we understand that whole sort of thing, right? So that's why we're trying to come up with solutions and educate ourselves and get ourselves more to advocate. Hey David, by any chance you want to just step back into the audience and let somebody else, like, you know, go in, and we can cycle back and forth between people. Again, this is like sort of an open forum.
Good. Like, but before you go, like, before I step out for a couple of minutes, I am going to bring it up. Like, after they get done with Florida, with Orlando to Miami, like, I know they're planning for Tampa, but that will probably be farther down the line. I guarantee. Oh, speaking of that, PO89 went by the Palmetto Amtrak.
I'm sorry?
PO89, the Palmetto, the Amtrak train, did pass my house.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you live right by the track, man.
Yep.
All right, yeah.
Before I accept that, like, just think about it. Once they get that Miami to Orlando, then they're going to start working on Express West.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're working on that concurrently, man. All
Like,
right.
They're going to focus on that.
Yeah. All right, man.
I'm going to step back.
Not a problem.
The next time.
Yeah, I think Grambo was in, so we'll go ahead and bring Grambo on. Anything Chicago Rail fan you want to talk about or bring up before I go ahead and bring in Grambo?
Not really. I just wanted to chill around here because, I mean, it's been a while since I've been here on Lark Street.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, I understand people have everything else going on and stuff like that, you know, and you know, everybody else, you know, sometimes like Ruben today, you know, wasn't feeling well, so he's taking a break from it, so, you know, it's understandable. Let's bring in Grambo over here as well and see what he has to say about it.
I'm gonna head back in the audience.
Yeah, not a problem.
David, put your hand down, please.
Hello?
Hey, Grambo, how's it going?
Ah, fantastic. You don't mind if I switch off to voice activity because I switched over to push to talk.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. I mean, however you need to do it. But, you know.
Of course. Give me just 1 second.
Yeah. And again, guys, anybody who wants to join in, I have put a link to the Discord. You know, join us on the Arc Grand Central server. And if you guys want anything to say, you know, you want to chat about anything, put your hand up in the audience below. And we can, you know, we'll let you on. You know, if you guys want to debate something like that, you know, that's something I do want to bring up. You know, if any, you know, I think that's fun if we could start doing debates and stuff like that. You know, it gives us, you know, either to play devil's advocate or to just get a little bit more savvy in the public sphere of things, because I think that's something of an art that, you know, people just don't have right now anymore. But yeah, you know, let me see what's going on in the.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ah, excellent. So I just wanted to comment on what David said.
Sure.
There is some truth in what he said, but not quite there. If it's anything that is the result of so much debt when it comes to the banking industry, if it's anything that's to blame, it's just more than just debt. If you want to go really deeper when it comes to conspiracy, you should pretty much look into how World War II got started and how not just the collapse of the market, or how do you say, the Great Depression, and the only excuse that pretty much got started is how the big oil really got started as well. Actually, I did share or at least posted a video in the video chat in the Discord about it. I talked about how big oil really got started. Now, if you really want to go deep down, Woo-hoo! Like, your mind will be blown on that.
I'm trying to see which one over here. I'm looking through the Discord now. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and
I
that's the thing. It's
posted
like,
in my
there are some things we kind of have to be careful of saying. Like, for example, World War II, and that sort of stuff. We don't want to get Susan in a tissel, or some other people and stuff.
I know, absolutely. Or even worse, we don't want to get how would you say, showed up in place boxes and showed up out of nowhere. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Like, some sort of things. There are like some, right now scrolling up, I'm at like a June 6 over here. I see like Not Just Spike's videos, which I've seen. Why we won't raise our kids in suburbs, because he moved him and his family over to the Netherlands. Which is, it's a good idea. Like, look, if you're gonna say stuff, practice what you preach. If you have the means and the funding in order to get out of a city and something like that. Like right now, I'm trying to, do that sort of thing, because I don't want to, raise, when I have a family, try to, have a family again, with everything that's gone in my life. I still want to have kids and stuff like that. I don't want to raise them in a suburb by far. If I have to raise them in a rural environment, that's kind of what I want to. In an urban environment, probably not in the United States. When I was talking with Holly about it, we were thinking of, oh, maybe I should just go ahead and do, the JET program, which is basically, teaching English in Japanese schools. I find it kind of cringe, kind of the people who do it, it's just kind of funny. I had some opportunities to work for like actual Japanese companies over there, and then just things happen in the the economy and stuff like that. But that's always a thing. But it's kind of also the whole cultural balance. Bringing up kids that are basically they're living in a whole Japanese environment. It's not the same like, let's say, in the Netherlands. It's a little bit easier, for kids that look, similar to them and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But that's kind of the thing. Let me see. Oh, Akbar Ali with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, man. Tri-rail metro style, every 5 minutes peak, every 10 minutes off peak, no need for a schedule. People might actually use it if they can just go whenever. Yeah, that's what they have in most countries that actually have working services, like in Japan. If you miss a train, no big deal. 2 minutes later, another train's going to come by. Tri-rail doesn't really run by that. They have a fixed schedule, which they never really follow to a T anyway, because they're always running behind for some sort of reason or another. But yeah, that sort of thing of just having, if they could. I don't know if, like, the last time I've used Tri-Rail, it's been, years since I've used it. But I don't think they have, like, a 5 minute sort of schedule like that. But yeah, anyway, Gramble, anything you wanted to bring up or anything? Gramble, if you're there. Alright, no worries. Yeah, if anybody in the audience wants to go ahead and join on in, we can bring you in as well. Starforce25, I see you have your hand up. Let's go ahead and bring you in if you want. Again, it's an open discussion, open forum, whatever you guys want to talk about, bring it up.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, out loud and clear, man. How's it going?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. I was hearing a lot of the discussion we were talking about. We were discussing earlier in the stream, especially regarding how you said about, especially just recently, you just talked about how Tri-Rail was, like how it's not like how some places like in Japan, if you miss a train, it's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I mean it's kind of like that. It's kind of more like that when more like a lot of the places too, like Europe and even in the U.S., like especially in areas with more mass transit, like, oh, if I miss my train or bus, it's not a big deal because there'll be another one coming in like 15, like maybe 10-15 minutes. But I did find out like a while ago, like there have been shortages on some of the transit systems, especially me speaking from experience with the CTA. That they said that there's been staffing shortages. I've been wondering, like, probably I would think like at first would probably be because of like the whole vaccination thing, even though that's really not required anymore. But it just seems like I mean, despite that, it seems we still get like when I take the any CTA bus or train, it's like not a big deal if I miss it. But with my experience with the Metra and the Pace bus system in the suburbs, that's a whole different story because they don't obviously like. I mean, I would say this is probably also the case with cities like Philadelphia, Washington D.C., and New York City, around there.
Yeah.
I just feel like they it just need more train service, especially now when it's like not that obtainable, and especially now that gas prices are still going up. I actually heard in Canada that people have to pay multiple taxes just for like gas and stuff, which is insane. I feel like Canada right now surprisingly has it worse off than the U.S. does concerning the availability of the price of gas.
Oh yeah, in a sense, looking at places like Canada, it's kind of looking through a crystal ball of how some places in the U.S., particularly the more liberal-leaning places like California, New York, how things are going to end up in terms of, let's say, just in general lifestyle decisions. Except for, let's say, Alberta, because Alberta is kind of like the odd one out of the provinces, up there in Canada. But, and that's the sort of thing, what are we paying all these gas taxes for? Because Canada also is having the same issues when it comes to, the roads, because they followed us lockstep and key when it came to infrastructure in a lot of places. Big highways with lots of lanes over in a lot of places, very, mass amounts of suburbanization, and that's sort of the issue that, Canada and the U.S. sort of share. And
exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, they have some places like in, I just forgot, like in Ottawa, and other places where they do have, some nice metro areas. In Vancouver, where they do have a little bit more of a robust transit infrastructure, but a lot of Canada is still suffering through the same thing. Again, it goes back to the reason we're paying all these taxes. There was some meme that somebody shared, like this "Hide the Pain Herald" meme, where it's like, oh, good, I just paid my taxes. That means the roads are going to get better. No, it doesn't. it's like we've been paying. No. It's like, look, places like California, they're paying massive amounts of gas taxes, and where is that going? It's not even going to help transit in places like that, and let's say, back in my hometown of Miami, the half-penny tax that they promised since the 1980s, we're going to build the Miami Metro system, we're going to connect the north of the county, we're going to connect the right. East and west of the county, and we're going to connect the mainland over to the beach. And it never happened. They just went ahead and it's like, right. Oh, we'll just pad the bus service. And the bus service down in Miami is one of the worst in the nation. Okay, you have a quarter of the people, who work there, even, before the pandemic, never showed up to work. They just, came back, and the union rules never let them get fired or anything.
Exactly. I mean, I was last week, I was on a bus heading north from downtown Chicago up to the neighborhood I live in right now, and that one was it took so long to get up there when it's literally faster if you take like the red line or the brown line and then just walk over. But I mean, I wanted to do it for the sake of more so convenience than speed because I thought it's a more convenient connection to get from point A to point B, but they've been having some crowding issues as well. Obviously the way the buses are built, they're not built to handle such high capacity high capacity of passengers going from point A to point B. And I feel that's kind of where the CTA is kind of lacking in not just convenient transit, but fast transit as well, because just because even within Chicago, it still takes like quite a while to actually get um, from one part of Chicago to another. Not just how big it is, but because of like just how much traffic like these buses end up in, and just there's just gotta be solutions to this, so there can be like I know like the CTA a while ago they started like bus priority lanes, but from what I've seen downtown, it's like it doesn't seem to be work. It just doesn't seem to be working that well because cars are still just using them as turning lanes, or they're just using it as a way to get around other places. It's just a mess down there.
Yeah, no, and I agree. If only Darius were here, because he's talked a lot about this with me in terms of the bus system. Like let's say like in a lot of places like Miami also share sort of the same problems with in terms of their bus systems. You know, a whole lot of different
Right.
stops that don't really coincide with really moving people every sort of blocks, and just weird either L-shaped sort of routes that are trying to, because it goes into the realm of, you know, the bus is doing what a robust you know, train line and streetcar system was supposed to be for, because in most
Exactly.
places, you know, buses sort of act as circulators around areas where you get off on a train and then go off on a bus and sort of circulate around in that area. You know, buses will go around in a circle. Like when we went to in Tokyo, we went to go see the JoJo movie, the live action one in Japan,
Yeah.
and you know, and of course no subtitles, but like I understand, you know, 50-25% of the language, so you know I can follow the movie even though I've seen the part 4 anyway. But you know, me and my friends, we get off the train system, and then there's a bus just standing right there. And it's not a big bus or anything like that. It's about half the size of usual most American buses. We get on there, and within 5 minutes or so, it's like right at this, you know, sort of big mall, you know, 5-story mall, where the movie theater's on top. We get there, we go see the movie, we come back down. About 5-10 minutes later, the bus comes to the bus stop, and it circles around the whole area. They're like 5 blocks of
Yeah.
area. It goes back to the train station, and then we just go back to our area and, you know, where our hotel is, walk out the train station, go 2 blocks, and go to our apartment. You know, and that's
Yeah.
it's very simple when you have that sort of system. You know, and that's sort of a thing. You know, that if you live in an urban area, you expect that sort of convenience, but you don't have.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have, you know, any convenience within American and North American urban areas. You're tied to the automobile. Which, if you're living in a rural area, you know, I understand, and somebody did mention this last stream, you know, hey, you know, I live in a rural area, and, you know, to get to a grocery store, you know, I'd get in my car and go there, and my next door neighbor is maybe, you know, a quarter mile away, and, you know, yeah, and that's fine, and that's where the necessity of a car comes from. You know, there's no need to have a train or a bus system in, let's say, a rural area. But in an urban area, you want things to work. That's the whole point of it. You pay,
Yeah.
you know, out of the ass for taxes, you know, for things not to work. You know, to
Right.
have even a road system that has potholes all over the place.
I know. I mean, that just seems to be like kind of the staple of what pretty much roads everywhere in the U.S. But the other thing is, it doesn't. I feel like it doesn't really make sense when you have bus routes that like span like a whole friggin' section of of a city as big as Chicago, because I mean that's kind of where you need to have like metro trains, or at least light rail systems. Like that's where it can cover that distance, because it can also have its own right of way, even more so than bus rapid transit, which is also kind of I feel like has been a kind of a pill here in the U.S. Not just light rail, but I mean you gotta give credit that light rail is actually is more like efficient and environmentally friendly, since it can run on electric and can have its own dedicated right of way without too much traffic interference.
Yeah, and that's.
But
Go ahead.
but the thing is, like, yeah, but the way that the bus system here in Chicago is set up, like with the exception of like a few routes, most of them are on a north to south, east to west oriented network because of how the street grid is set up. Like you have a lot of times you're going to have buses for like a particular like main street. Like for example, the 74 bus that runs along that mainly runs along Fullerton Avenue, which runs from like Lincoln Park to like somewhere in the west side. Like that's kind of like how it is. But there are also some buses that kind of act as like highway buses for a portion of the route, like how it is in Japan, like along Lakeshore Drive, like which is kind of nice. But like still, like most of the routes, most of those routes are still going to be like just making stops like along like a nearly damn near 10 miles, 5 to 10 mile stretch of the city, which
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit too much.
Yeah, it's just a shame, honestly, and it's nice to see now light rail is coming back. We covered last time that Glendale now is going to have at some point in the future, if it still holds on, a light rail system by 2027. So add in 3 or 5 years, and that's kind of the time when it comes in. But honestly,
Like
the problem
Glendale,
with Glendale, California, in the Los Angeles area.
Make it become part like basically a new line along the LA Metro.
Yeah, but kind of the issue that I see now with light rail in America is that they follow, infrastructurally it is a light rail system, but they're kind of kneecapped to follow the rules of the road like if they were a bus. So even when the lights go red, the streetcar stops, which is something that they've never done, and it's kind of. It's strange because America used to have a very robust streetcar interurban trolley systems within even places that today are kind of just larger towns with like 100,000 or 50,000 people. They used to have 50, 60, 70 years ago a streetcar system, and they still had cars and they still had all this stuff like places like in Indiana. Muncie, Columbus, these cities now that have maybe around 80 to 100,000 people. Back then they had maybe max 50,000 people. They're not large cities or anything like that. They're just big towns. That was like immediately surrounded by rural areas. So you had places like that around the United States. But, I've gone to Cincinnati, I've gone to Oklahoma City, I've seen the streetcar systems, I've seen, Tampa's a little bit better, that the streetcar doesn't, it goes kind of on its own system, but the problem is that once it gets at a stoplight, it's stopping with like the rest of the cars, and that's sort of a problem. You're defeating the purpose of having a streetcar if it has to follow that. It should only stop, A, in case of emergencies, and B, in case at a station. Does not. It is above and beyond following the rules of the car, because that's the reason why you take a streetcar, is to take a train system, because you want to get from station to station. Okay, if you're stuck between, and that's the thing, there's pros and cons to trains. Obviously the pros are the convenience, the speed of it. The cons are you have to get to a station, and the station may not be exactly to the place that you want to be. It's going to be close enough, but for that you shouldn't have to be put down to a level that you have to follow now the same laws as a car has to, and have this thing stop at stoplights. It's stupid.
I mean, that's kind of the problem. I especially see this with like the light rail in LA, in Dallas, in Salt Lake City, Portland. They for a good portion of their journey, they actually run like an actual train, like a metro system or a commuter train. But then once they get downtown, then it becomes more like a bus.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's like a really long bus. Like you have to stop at every light, which can really mess up the schedule, especially if there's like delays because of traffic.
Yeah, and that's kind of an issue. But anyway, I think
mean,
Rambles has been
let's-
kind of just hanging on here. We'll just let him here. CTR Lee had his hand up, so we'll go ahead and invite him to speak and see if he has anything to say on it. And again, if you guys want to change the subject or like that, it's up to you. It's kind of the floor is on your end, so I'm just gonna follow whatever sort of topic you guys are gonna bring up.
Yeah. It's just a thing. Like, it makes me really wonder. Like, when did we actually last build a full-on metro line that didn't even use pre-existing track?
Oh man, I mean, I don't know.
Or can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hey,
So what were we talking about here before we got in?
Yeah, we've been talking about streetcar systems in America, how they just basically been kneecapped. They're coming back, but they're not running the same as they were before.
Oh yeah. Which kind of reminds me of
Sorry.
another thing here.
Just to put it short, basically talking about the modern light rail systems in the U.S. and how they're basically running as a hybrid of streetcar and metro.
Okay, because I know for one thing is that the kind of only true North American streetcars left is Toronto's streetcar system. Because that's basically the only OG streetcar system in North America that had not been dismantled even during in 1950s when all the kind of streetcar craze were the
CTR Lee, your mic is going in and out, man. I don't know if it's your connection or something. You there?
Yeah,
Uh-oh. It could be my stuff going on. Okay, I can hear you loud and clear. I think something is wrong with my Discord here. Okay, that's weird. Okay, no, never mind. It's back. Okay, it's good. All right, I was just hoping, the internet would go out, or something like that. You see, my PC is, still running nice and fine. It's a toasty 88 degrees here, so we're okay. We're okay.
Okay, like I was saying,
there you go. Now you're back.
Okay, now I was saying that Toronto's streetcar system was the only surviving pre-war streetcar system that had not been ripped out during the 50s dismantling craze in the Americas.
Yeah, San Francisco also as well to an extent, as well as the only one that kind of survived.
And even that even that it's just the original streetcar. Well, they already have the new rolling stock, but a streetcar basically have to follow the rules like a car does, and you have to press the bell to let the driver to stop and let you off. So there's that. And they're also on top of that, they're also the city of Toronto recently just announced that they are going to build another rapid transit line. So. In Toronto, despite that the Line 5 Eglinton Crosstown has been going a little bit rough. It's going a little bit rough with a lot of delays after delays, and there's which I want to segue into the other problems that something about North American public transportation projects that they have always had a tendency to delay, run over budget, and even got delayed. So that leaves
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is just the amount of budget overruns that a lot of these projects run into, which is it's a problem that's inherent to modern day America now. It's every single project is always running over budget and past time that it needs to really get up and going. Which is like places like you've seen in Cincinnati with the Bell system, with a whole bunch of other places. Oklahoma City had the same sort of issues. I believe. Was it Milwaukee as well? Also had the same issue as well. That's kind of the
Kansas City.
Yeah, Kansas City. Yeah, every single one of these lines go over budget, and then they go ahead and say we're gonna have a billion passengers by next month or something like that, and they never do, or something comes up, or they have to have the service for free for a little while, and that's kind of the thing. You can't just it's a good thing building this sort of system, but again, the world where the streetcars ruled is very much gone. It's not dead. It's not like it can come back, but it's not here right now. people are just seeing it sort of more as a novelty in a sense. People will go ahead and get on like the Cincinnati Bell or these other places, to go ahead and hop from bar to bar. It's like it's a Friday night or a Saturday night, or it's on the weekend and they're taking it. Apart from that, you'll probably see maybe a few commuters going to and from lunch and work or some other places and stuff like that. But it's not really used to the point because it's still the whole system of the automobile. That's kind of the issue in there, is that the culture has circled around the automobile and living in a suburb and commuting for such a long time.
Exactly. And
yeah.
It's not going to places where it's really badly needed. Like, let's say, say New York, or the streets of New York or Chicago, which could actually benefit from a streetcar or mini light rail or something like that.
Yeah, and
because the streets are more compact and they're more made to be walkable, really.
Yeah.
A lot of them are. But.
Which also we kind of briefly talked about this during the last stream where I mentioned that when you kind of bring up this also kind of get into a weird ideological side of things, which mainly I see from the right side of the aisle, usually the right wing people, personally I believe, have this kind of really weird post Cold War era person mindset that the automobile is kind of the ultimate symbol of freedom, and that any kind of investment towards public transportation is seen as a prelude to socialism.
Yeah, that's been another thing, and we're
to an extent.
Yeah, no, well, not necessarily. I mean, come on, look, you had the Lada. It's not to say that communist countries go into full on into the car, and it's just kind of silly because this sort of thing in America happened. I'm just holding up the Dining by Rail book. This happened when we were at our peak of, let's say, freedom and free markets and capitalism and that sort of thing. The rail market flourished when you had an actual more freer economy. It's not to say that the economy was perfectly free back then. Of course you had monopolies and stuff like that, but also the U.S. government did crack down a lot more on monopolies, in the early 20th century, at least a lot more than the extent now, because they just kind of allow things to happen now. I mean, look at Disney. I mean, that's they basically own the entertainment market, or let's say Amazon and Google. They definitely own much of the internet, and these companies back 100 years ago would have been broken up very easily. So you didn't have that same sort of mentality back then in America, and that's what helped, at least for the rail market to flourish. Now, post World War II into the Cold War era, things started to take a turn, and I kind of, in a sense, the American system already flirted with socialism here and there, of course, with the New Deal and FDR, and into the 1950s and 60s to sort of say, well, it's an excuse as to, well, the government needs some power in order to combat the Soviets. And meanwhile, the Soviet Union was starving for half the time, honestly. So this whole sort of thing to say that, oh, trains are communist, and cars are not. No, it's kind of the exact opposite, because it really, getting yourself into the whole system of a car is kind of putting yourself into the system where you have to get a car. So you're forced to use a car. You're forced to pay for the roads. You're forced to go ahead and get gas. You're forced to go ahead and find a job in order to keep this financing. That's not freedom at all. let's be honest.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, learning about I remember learning about, like, a few times learning about, like, the culture of the 50s and 60s and how it, like, always was used as a kind of, our culture was kind of, we were trying to make it like a counterculture to the Soviets, and it kind of made it to the point where it was just like,
hey guys,
we need to do, like, we
hey,
need to
Darius.
do this, so we're not like them.
All right, just one quick thing. So Darius is finally got himself onto Discord. The director of research over here is now the co-host. So he's on now finally. So we finally got him onto Discord. Yep. How's it going, man?
All right, going good.
All right. So I'm sorry. What were you saying before we got interrupted there?
Before we got interrupted, I'm just saying like how Soviet, like how our culture back then was kind of turned into this whole counter-Soviet culture because, you know, we didn't want to go, we didn't want to be like them. Like we saw them as like the true evil, the true evil culture.
Yeah.
And why we went so individualistic, and why we adopted all of these policies because of it, like single-family homes, the need for a car, the need to the values, like the religious values and stuff like that, that we've largely turned away from within the past 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, and you can sort of see that, like everything in America, let's put it this way, like productivity has gone through the roof, but, you know, income has stayed basically the same since the 1970s. Church attendance has gone down drastically. The ability for families to be able to own or be able to afford housing or goods has gone down. So it's kind of like a viral tweet that went out, I think, like a year or two ago, that America defeated the Soviet Union only to become a dumb, and let's say the other word that we can't say now because it's the month for that now, I guess, to become that version of the Soviet Union now, so we defeated it to just become a dumb version of it, honestly, at this rate. But it's and somebody asked about the picture that I came up with yesterday
Not exactly dumb. I wouldn't exactly describe it as dumb. I would as fluff, because look at all this stuff we have all around us.
Yeah, and I think people have also gone a little bit too, rolling in the fat of just, extreme amounts of consumerism. Let's put it that way, because you didn't have that back then either. And again, that's kind of something that started in the 1950s, and then everything started to really downturn into the 1960s as the baby boomers, came of age and started to take over the culture of America. It's not to blame them, but because where did the baby boomers come from? Well, they came from the culture that we had. We just won the war. Yeah, we won everything. So that the silent, or is it called like the greatest generation or whatever, said, oh, we're gonna give them everything, and it kind of turned them into monsters in a sense, instead of, because these were the same, they're coming from being bred by the same generation that got through the Depression, living off of nothing, they kind of, we didn't want our kids to feel that same sort of thing, and it just sort of.
Then they are the ones saying that we millennials are spoiled.
Yeah, it's kind of like, in that, Full Metal Jacket, the second part. I don't know why everybody hates the second part of Full Metal Jacket and say, oh, it's boring and stuff like that. I only like the first part. But, you kind of make a whole generation of psychopaths that they're expecting this whole thing, and the minute you throw them into something that is not what they were expecting, they go completely nuts. And that's kind of what happened in the 60s, I'm trying to get the picture that I had from... that I put yesterday on the community. I don't know why I can't find it now. There we are. Serving the Nation by Dean Cornwell. Let me see if I can put up the picture now. There we are. No, that's not a good one. Let me just find it on there. But yeah, the same America that we had back in the day is not the same America that we have now today. It's a completely different nation. Let me see if I can get that picture finally. There we are. All right, now I can put it up over here. There we go. So if you guys are watching on the stream, you can kind of see.
How you said that we defeated the Soviet Union to become a dumb version of the communist nation? Well, we defeated Nazism just to still have some unfortunate leftovers of fascism in our society.
All right. Well, let's not get into that, okay? Because you can have a Stalin shirt, but you cannot have the funny mustache man. And I'm not talking about me with my funny mustache. We all know who we're talking about. The one who shall not be named. It's like the Voldemort of the modern century. Everybody. Again. Darius, don't try to bring up Godwin's law over here, okay? We can't.
Disabled and poor black neighborhoods.
All right, man, Darius, you gotta chill down, man. I've let you on here. We can't be going into these discussions.
Okay. Okay, so another, so kind of want to talk about another thing which have been, which were briefly mentioned by the pretty much at the tail end of the last stream, is that when we're talking about urbanism, we kind of talk about urbanism and kind of things like that. I noticed that a lot of these individuals who are, well, who are very pro urban urbanist type advocates and I'll say activists. They are most of them very far left leaning for some reason, and yet on the other side of you for some reason. Just I wonder if there are any kind of a reason for that though.
I think it's mostly, the reason why there seems to be a lot more of, let's say, generally leftists within sort of the transit community is because it's in an urban environment. So you're mostly going to have a much more liberal leaning sort of politic in an urban environment. And you also have a lot of overlap with different groups, right? Like the environmentalist groups, etc. Not to say that environmentalists go lockstep and key with the rest of the transit community, because we've definitely seen in California and other places where you have environmentalists reeling against the California high-speed rail project because it's going to go through the habitat of the rare speckled chinchilla, the purple speckled chinchilla. We can't have that happen. The poor chinchilla's ears and habitat will be destroyed. Of course I'm going embellishing and over exaggerating what this is, but and again, a lot of the environmentalist agenda has been co-opted a lot longer than people have expected. For the last 50 years, you've had big oil basically puppeteering the green energy and environmentalist and greeny sort of groups in order to go against nuclear energy and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's not that's just a crackpot conspiracy. No, it's an actual real thing. There's evidence to it, and there's people who have admitted to it. So it really has more to do with the environment where they are, and it's like it is common sense to have a transit system, which I just look at like the common sense sort of thing, and everybody. It's not a secret that I'm a right wing type of person, but. And I'm just looking at what's common sense, what makes more sense. Is it sensical to have a whole bunch of people beholden and chained to the automobile industry and to big oil to the point that we're now, our country is in the mess that it is now, or is it sensible to have options for people to get around, and it doesn't just help people in urban environments. Like I said before, you've had rail systems and interurbans that are in places that were more rural. Like, just an example here in Indiana. Columbus, Indiana had an interurban system. It's 60 miles south of Indianapolis. Not that big of a city or anything like that. It's basically a large town, let's say back in 1940 something, with, let's say, I'm just estimating over here, maybe max 20,000 people. But you still had an interurban system and a streetcar system that went around the little town area and connected. So let's say it's the last Sunday in May, it's Memorial Day, and you want to go ahead and see the Indy 500 up in Indianapolis. Well, that interurban system back in the 30s and 40s and 50s was flooded by people who wanted to go ahead and get up, and you could go take that interurban, go up to Indianapolis, and go walk over to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and go watch the 500, with 250,000 people there, and then take the train and come back. So to say that, this is the sort of thing that won't happen in the United States because the United States can't do, we had that. It worked fantastically. It's not to say that it was a perfect system, because there's no perfect system, but it's definitely a ton better than the system that we have today. And people say, oh no, there's no need to. You have cars, and I can just get into my car and get to where I need to and stuff like that. You know how hard it is to get into a whole bunch of these large events and get around cities, now? It's because we're forced to. There's no other way. So it's not to say that this is convenient. It's really just, it's a cognitive dissonance of what we had before and what worked, and versus what people are just used to now, because they've never seen it. It's kind of like they're just left in ignorance because this is the way that we're living in now. It's not that if people were shown the real way that they'll change their minds. No, And I know some guy had put in a comment, it's like, would you rather go ahead and, try to engage with people who disagree with you, or try to just talk to the people with the audience over here? That's the whole point, because we've realized that there's something wrong. So a lot of you guys, and I started out the same way. I said there's something wrong with this system. Why are the trains taking so long when other countries have train systems that are far more robust and can be able to take people between places far more quickly, and they do have still a very nice road system and car system, like places like Japan and Germany. Germany has the Autobahn. You don't hear every day of accidents going on the Autobahn, and that's a 2-lane highway. Okay, a 2-lane highway where you can basically cruise around at 180 miles an hour, and people actually move out of the way most of the time.
So they got it right. Germany's got it right on how to transport.
Yeah, and
So
that's
does Japan.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So it's like, once people aren't going to, let's say, wake up. And that goes into whole other facets of politics. At this rate, with everything that's going on, if you haven't woken up, you're not waking up. And I've talked to this with a friend. At the point where a tank, a T-72 rolls into your house, and at that point you're not going to wake up in period anyway, because it's going to blow you away. So people are just not going to wake up. People have to take themselves. It's like the saying goes: you can bring a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So that's why we've made this sort of movement, is to get people who know that there's something wrong, and to educate them and bring them into a group where they can be with like-minded individuals and educate themselves and help us all to advocate for this system that works. It's common sense.
True. But when you're speaking about other cars, which are about for quite some while, it's that
Lee, your mic's going in and out again.
on the when you're talking about how we're kind of forcing the very car dependency infrastructure, which kind of brings me, which I was thinking of another thing that was, well, I was thinking about another thing is that on the other, then you have another type of the libertarians.
Yeah.
People think basically.
You there, man?
Solution to it.
Yeah, I think.
To it, and then thinking we don't need trains because those are just kind of some outdated technology. So I want to know your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think you were making a good point there, but your connection or something just went in and out.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so let me repeat myself. So I was saying that when you're talking about the kind of how the kind of post World War II, kind of in the 50s and 60s, how America's basic transition away from railroad and then onto the automobile, and then when oil costs happened, then the 70s oil crisis happened, and oil kind of things like anything beyond after that, and then people start looking into building rails again, but then on the other hand, you have the so-called the libertarian politicians who think tanks and politicians like.
Yeah, you just crapped out there again. Hello? Oh man, yeah, I think Lee's having a bit of issues, but yeah, and I know I've mentioned this about sort of libertarian groups, which they're not really libertarian. I mean, honestly, the Libertarian Party in America is not even a serious libertarian party, and when you start getting into the actual areas of because I've had that sort of phase also too. I think most people in the right wing get to that phase of where they go into and flirt with libertarianism for quite a while, and then they figure out, well, the problem is that if you have absolute freedom, to that's the thing. It's like, to what end do you have absolute freedom? Freedom is not a means to an end. It's not like, well, my freedom. That's not where it ends. It's to what purpose they have the freedom.
Is liberty without coercion from the government or the state.
Yeah, which is kind of where it goes into the founding of America. But you still have to have a government that actually does things for the people. And I'm not going into it because I know I forget whose name it was last stream that kind of mentioned this. But like, I brought up like another school of libertarianism, like through Hans Hermann Opp in his book, Democracy, the God That Failed, is that the problem with our system is like what you see now, is that it turns into a corporatocracy run by an oligarchy, where you do have, the oil companies and all this sort of stuff, making it hard for other companies, like just say, what happened in Texas this week, because Texas has had to deal with so many hurdles, Texas Central Railway, in order to go ahead and get that project going. I mean, and they've had, backing and funding by the Japanese. They've had Renfe from Spain in order that, they're going to be the operators for it if this thing goes on. But because they've been so backlogged by judicial Sudoku, in order to go ahead and get through all the zoning laws, to get through, even, silly laws of eminent domain, that this whole entire project can be killed off because you have a very, in the back face you have, the one or two, I forget the specifics of this case, but you have, the one landowner who's started this case against Texas. But behind that one landowner, you have to go behind it, follow the money. You have Ben Lehman, who has a lot of connections to the oil companies. You have a whole lot of other companies behind that, etc., pushing for that within the Texas lobby, within the Texas court, in order to go ahead and shut that down. Okay, the same thing happened with Southwest Airlines when Texas, previously tried to get some sort of system again, and Southwest Airlines went ahead and shut it down. So this country does not have a laissez-faire and free and open market, like the libertarians think or want to, believe in their magic closed eye, la la land that we do, because we don't. It's not happening. It's obviously, here now that people are asking, is Texas Central Railway dead? And that deserves its own video on its own. And I've gone through a whole bunch of articles. Texas Central Railway itself has not come up with an official response to it. They've just said that we're according to some articles, they're saying we're still going on with the groundbreaking of the station, and we still haven't heard from the court, which I've said on the Discord channel, and somebody else said it is a little sus, to say in Zoomer lingo, it's very sus that the court has been waiting this long and pushing it on limbo to keep this thing from going.
Yeah. I mean, like, look at that in California high-speed rail and compare that to Brightline. I mean, Brightline, they've already built to Orlando. They've already rolled the first train into Orlando, and now they're planning to expand to Tampa. Plus, they're planning to build their Express West high-speed rail line as well in between Victorville and Vegas.
That would be groundbreaking if it really takes off. But okay, so can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, so what I was saying was that, and then when we were talking about that was, then you have some libertarian think tanks like Cato Institute, like Randall O'Toole, who used to be in Cato.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. If you go back into the history of the Cato Institute, it was started by Ludwig von Mises, and it was taken over by corporate interests, and Mises kind of had to go off on his own and make the Mises Institute.
Yeah, and then he basically keep railing against railing against railroad, basically say that how we have his autonomous cars and like gadget bonds and things like that, so we don't need to invest in quote unquote outdated technologies like trains.
Oh yeah, no, go. But yeah, go ahead. You guys talk. I actually have one of Randy O'Toole's book. I didn't pay Randy or anything. I just got the book used, so it's not like he's getting any of my money anyway. But
So yeah, what's your take on kind of this like really hot takes?
It's completely stupid. And let me see if I can get the book real quick over here. Give me just a bit. Let me see. There we are. Gridlock. Yeah, there's some books that I have kept on over here. with the move, I still have boxes and boxes of books, but there were some things that like I remember I've highlighted over here and something like that. Yeah, like he's got a whole chapter here of like paying for mobility and talking about how the railroads have gotten money, and then just basically passes through the highway era and said, oh, the highways actually started out as private companies, which they were, and I was like passed through the McDonald Trust and all of that. But the problem is that that's not the same sort of thing that's going on now. And I forget who's there was a very big name Republican, sort of paleo-conservative. I forget his exact name. That he said this, that to say that the United States is a free market that's on a level playing field is absolutely false when airlines are getting massive amounts of funding, and so are the roadways. So it's not a level playing field.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, technically it's true. It's true. I mean, when you kind of also factoring in that the railroad company had to own their own infrastructure, own and operate their own infrastructure. That also does help to does kind of create some kind of problem. Which if you read on their Facebook, vertical separation, like how how these states, how over in Europe the government usually owns the kind of infrastructure, and then the train operators just kind of basically operates on the old runs train. So with that regard, I want to kind of know if that would kind of work in the context of the United States, or is it gonna be another mess?
Yeah. I'm trying to find the exact quote that I was just mentioning. If you guys want to keep on going, go ahead.
So let's try looking for.
Let me see if I can find it, because I know I put this quote in it was the Virgin Train story, back when Brightline was called Virgin Trains USA. Finally, that whole I don't know if anybody has gotten any news on that, of what's going on between Virgin and Brightline. I think that they've kind of gone on the wayside, or if it's still in the court proceedings of what actually is going on with that. But that's something that we haven't gotten any news on lately. It's just been kind of weird. Let me see. I think I found it. There we are. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so Paul Wywork. Okay, this is from Facts About Transportation Subsidies, a paper by the Missouri-Kansas Passenger Rail Coalition. Okay, and they said here, as been noted by noted conservative Paul Wywork of the Free Congress Foundation, quote, the current transportation system dominated by highway and air transportation is by no means a free market outcome. Rather, it is a result of massive and sustained government intervention on behalf of these two modes. Indeed, before government became involved on this massive scale, most transit and intercity passenger rail systems were privately owned for-profit enterprises, which is, the exact problem that we're getting into, today is what we're talking about. So it's to say that, railroads don't make money. Well, no, that's absolutely false. Even when the Japanese, when it was still the Japanese rail system, owned by the government back in the 1960s, the Shinkansen, the first iteration of the Shinkansen system in the Tokaido Shinkansen between Tokyo and Osaka, was able to amortize all its debt within 10 years. And not only that, the profit that it was getting was paying for other rail systems and rail lines that weren't either making money or were making a loss, because they were going between places that didn't have as much passenger rail transportation. And that's kind of the thing with what's happened in Japan, is that you have so many people flooding into the big cities that you sort of see this rural decay in Japan, where there are some rural towns that are giving places for free. So if you wanted to move to Japan, which in my opinion, just kind of an offside topic, I would say it's a bad idea now with things going on, between China and Taiwan. And obviously China has it in for Japan, and unfortunately that country, Japan specifically, is not prepared, unfortunately, with its military, and that's definitely the United States' fault for making it that way. They've definitely kept Japan down, with this whole sort of scare tactic that Japan's gonna rise again, guys, and they're gonna bomb Pearl Harbor again. You know, it's kind of an unfounded fear that persisted through the 80s and 90s. You know, and it's gonna hurt us too. You know, and eventually that's gonna start. Look, if people were, I was warning about Russia and Ukraine for quite a long time. You know, China will invade Taiwan. You know, I think it may be earlier than 2027 because you have these crackpot generals that think that they're intelligent because they put out a book. You know, not to say that they don't know their stuff, but honestly, a lot of generals now in the United States are not the same generals as they were back then. You know, and they make these sort of silly predictions. Like there was one very big name general back in the 90s that said that Japan by 2020 was going to invade the United States. I'm not joking. So, you can't take these experts, seriously, quote unquote experts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I should note about Shinkansen is that although it did inaugurate it successfully, but it also settled the JNR, the Japanese National Railway, with huge steps that
Right.
they couldn't even, or their numbers were basically in the red for the next decade or two, to the point that they
Still there?
to pay off debts. So and then it's basically what the JR group companies we see today in Japan.
Right. Yeah, and that's what happened with when they privatized the JNR companies into the 7 or so separate private rail companies. They started making leaps and bounds in technology and started opening up different routes. And again, the other part is that, especially back then in America, one of the biggest points of profit for rail is owning that land. And owning the stations and having that real estate open to multi oh man, I'm kind of blanking out over here. Multi-use real estate. I was talking about this before. The highways. Because there was a highway that we were looking at back in the Shinjuku over in Tokyo. You had like 2-story businesses underneath the highways. Okay. And you don't have that same sort of land usage in America because of the zoning laws and the coding laws in America make that darn well near impossible that you don't have mixed land usage or mixed use land.
Yeah, it's at least not in modern day. It is how it used to be, and thankfully some of that's like in places like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia is still around, which is why I'm fortunate to actually live like in an urban area that's still has these business practices where you have like we have the businesses we have the little shops at the bottom, and you have bigger businesses and residential places like above it.
True.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, and then kind of most of the railroad systems also making money by using rail estate. I mean, if you look at Hong Kong's MTR, they're making MTR. I mean, they basically make a bundle of selling like developing real estate and housing. So there's that.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of the thing. What happened with when the former CEO of oh darn, I just forgot his name too. That's the thing. It's like when you get into this, it's like there's so many names, there's so many people that you just kind of have to remember. It's like you can't remember all of them off the top of your head. But you guys know who I'm talking about, I think. But he was the former head of the MTR. He came to New York and said, hey, there's some things that we can do over here in the MTA when they brought him on board to be the head of the MTA. And just
is it Jay Water?
I'm sorry.
Is that Jay Water? Because I remember seeing him in the news back in the days in Hong Kong.
I think so. Let me see. Former head of MTR to join MTA. Let me see if I can get confirmation on the name here. Was it Jay Walder?
Yeah.
I think so.
W-A-F-E-R.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy. Jay
Yeah.
Walder.
Yeah. So I mean, he was trying to put in a whole bunch of or trying to bring in some of that experience and some of those the tactics and strategies that the MTR in Hong Kong has used, but it's just because the MTA and a whole bunch of these other systems in the United States have basically become like the DMVs. In the United States, everything's got to be, to the bureaucracy, business as usual. It just keeps everything so slogged and bogged down. It's impossible to bring in any new ideas or any sort of logical solutions that have backing behind it and do work, and they're just financially sound advice. And they don't want to do it because that means they have to do work. That means they have to go ahead and change things around. Why change things around when in the United States you can be, especially, unions now are not, we don't need, like unions before were actually needed to an extent, but now it's just become to a point, like I've mentioned, like back, in Miami, the unions just keep a whole bunch of, people from getting fired for, missing work for half the year in the bus system. Again, there's a give and take with unions, and it's not to say that all unions are bad, etc. But, there's unions themselves don't even help the union members anyway there. They're just kind of collecting fees in order to go ahead and lobby for their own interest. But it goes to the point that, it's the way that the system is set up here in the United States politically, and bureaucratically makes it darn near impossible for new and logical ideas to come to the forefront.
Miles and miles of red tapes.
Yeah. If it's not just red tape, it's everything else over here. Let me just get this out. If you guys are watching on the stream and things are looking a little red, that's just because my red light filter kind of kicked in, so I'm just stopping that out so things don't look like you're playing, Doom 64 or something like that.
Okay, so...
All right. Well, is there anybody else in the audience that wants to join on in? Just put your hands up and we can get you in. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Well, I guess that's it for me tonight.
Yeah, sure thing. If you want to go back into the audience or sit back, it's I'm trying to make the floor for you guys. Whatever you guys want to talk about or mention, go on right ahead. That's why it's an open forum.
Okay, it's good. It's great talking to you.
All
Talking
right.
to you again.
Same here.
I'll go always.
Yeah. Darius, anything you want to mention? You there,
Nothing
man?
else I could think of.
All
Yeah.
right. Star Force, anything you want to throw into there?
Not right now.
All right. No worries. I think Darlin Frias is also on. Let's go ahead and invite him to speak on here. All right, Darlin, you're on board.
Good evening.
How's it going?
It's pretty good. Pretty good. So, Demetrius, I just want to transit-oriented development. Well,
Yeah, I think that's the
I've
word that I
heard-
was missing. Yeah, thank you for that.
there is some areas that are adopting this type of development. We have a housing crisis and a lack of transportation. We just put them together, and we have two solutions to those problems. So, what's your opinion on that?
On transit-oriented development, I'm sorry, because your connection was dropping in and out a little bit over there.
That's my internet connection. Sorry.
No worries.
Well, I was talking about transit-oriented development. We have housing crisis, which is going on in California, and we have a transportation issue, for example, traffic, etc. We put them together, and that's where you get transit-oriented development. We have housing on one side, we got transit on the other. It's easy access.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely that's been a solution that's been around since urbanization, to have mixed-use development, transit-oriented development, etc. And I know in San Francisco, it's been very difficult to get that sort of thing, and it's balancing, because people do have access to land, and that is a right that should be protected here in America. Is that if you own a piece of land, you should be able to to use that to an extent that does help not only yourself to profit, but also everybody else around you as well, because you're all sort of in a community. It's not to go ahead and take that piece of land and just hold on to it until the biggest bidder comes in, and then you just put in a 90% vacant apartment with half the space that's it's just there for parking, like you see in a lot of places down south, or like in Miami and places like that, where you still have a lot of vacant areas, and in the United States, especially in places like California. I mean, you have a lot of houses in places where it should be urban development, in urban areas, and then well, let me just continue on that. These houses that are they're over expensive. They're in urban areas, which they shouldn't be single family homes like that in urban areas, but they're held on until they reach a certain point in the market where a house that should cost maybe no more than $100,000 balloons up in a market to like $1 million. It's a two bedroom, 2-bathroom house that it's just like a house that was like a GI house made in the 1950s. You see this all over California, a lot of these houses that are just ridiculously overexpensive, and they're just passing hands between foreign investors or big hedge fund managing groups that just keep passing these on like investments. And that's the other, that I really think that's really the big problem, where you're seeing a lot of this failure to really build out urban areas for mixed-use development and transit-oriented development. Is it kind of has to do with investment firms in the United States just passing around back and forth, like how Zoomers now and millennials are kind of dealing with Pokemon cards. This is what these big hedge funds have been doing for 40 years with the housing market. They're kind of treating it like Pokemon cards. They're not treating it as houses or anything like that. They're treating them as commodities, like like their Bitcoin currency.
Yes, I get it. Well, there are some blank canvases in California where you could do this thing. And for example, there are some stations that you could create urban centers.
Yeah. Just to go on an earlier point, Renell Reed in the chat just clarified that the guy who became head of the MTA, who was MTR, was Andy Byford. I'm sorry, not Jay Wilder. It was Andy Byford. I should know this, guys. Honestly, I've been doing a script, and I've been having to do the script again for this big video that I'm trying to come out with. I know I said before May, and now we're more than halfway through June. And again, I'm trying to balance work and all this sort of stuff here, so it will come out. It will come out. I've already filmed a good portion of it, here and there. I just have to now add in a couple things. This is what happens when you push things too far. When you don't get things done on a timely manner, then other things come in to change it. Now I have to change it, a big part of it, because of what's going on in Texas. It is a big issue of what's going on with the country, because it's important. I'm sorry, darling. Go ahead if you want to say anything else or anything. Again, if anybody wants to talk about anything, the floor is yours. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not hogging up all the space. Let me see if there's anybody here in the chat. Anybody here in chat saying anything? In a comment, okay, Brutus Tan III said, in a comment on a mainstream new high-speed rail video, there was one commenter who insisted to oppose a Texas Central Railway because it claims it would cut into his family's ancestral land. Apparently he was Scarlett O'Hara and the land was Tara. Yeah, it gets kind of ridiculous, that there has to be a balance, right? You can't just, you should be able to have land. But if, let's say, an investment firm comes in and says, "Look, we're not here to take away the land," like what's the new TV series that takes place in Montana that the cringe conservatives love? They think it's it's so based in red pilled, this series, when it's kind of just
like Yellowstone.
Yes, Yellowstone. That's the one. Yeah, there was a part there that I've seen the clips. That like there's a whole bunch of Chinese tourists that come in. They're here to go ahead and just like I've said before. You have a whole bunch of foreign investment firms that come in and they just start swapping land like it's bitcoins, and other cryptocurrency. And they come in and one guy says in Mandarin and it gets translated, there's no reason that anybody should have this much of land. They kind of see that anything is like that, when in reality it's like, look, when the government goes in and wants to build a roadway, they do it. They really don't care, and you have a train company that says, look, we're trying to, we're building this. It's going to be good for the state. It's going to be good for everybody. And we're trying to come here to you. We're giving you a fair deal. We're giving you a fair shake. And the railway is also going to be elevated, so it doesn't have to interfere with your land. And again, you have places like in France that they've been able to do this. They've been able to build a TGV over, and you want to talk about ancestral land that's been in the hands for years. Okay, you have a lot of farmland and land in rural areas in Europe that have been passed down through families for 1,000 years or more. Okay, so to say that in America, my family has been here that long. Well, there's a lot of family that's been around in in Europe and places like that they've been able to own the land. But they know that it's going to be better for the state. So it's that balance that America has become so individualist, and it's like, not on my property, not in my backyard, NIMBY sort of attitude. Or as somebody in the chat has called, bananas, against anything, new in the area, right? It's that sort of thing that, you have to have a sort of balance, and back then, like, again, we keep bringing up this picture, the picture, Big Uncle Sam, rolling up his sleeves, and the Pennsylvania Railroad, chugging by. You have, that's the thing, America, it's not about, you can have everything you want, golden streets of gold and etc. That sort of, BS sort of thing. Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry, blah, 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 blah. That's all platitudes. It's really about, pioneers that basically gave up everything that they had to come over here to start anew, to sacrifice even more. Okay, because if you were a pioneer that went out west, the government basically used you because they knew you were going to get attacked by Native Americans or on that area, and then use that excuse to go ahead and throw the army and start another war again. But it's basically, you give up everything in order to go ahead and make it there and build a community and to help that community also thrive. You don't have that sense of community in America. It's a kind of a fake sort of community that, people only get around for a political reason, but it's not to help each other. And with this, let's say this situation now that's happening, people are going to realize who's a friend or who's going to be a real and true friend there, who's going to be there to die side by side or really help them out when the food lines start happening, because that's going to be next. Okay, you have the gasoline and everything else because we've pushed our country so far into the oil industry, into being so dependent on it. Well, now it's messing up everything. So that's, again, we don't have that sense of community anymore in America, that we're really to roll up our sleeves and sacrifice each other for our neighbors. We don't have that love for neighbor, where it's just about me, me, me. That's, again, yeah.
But at this point, the infrastructure in many cities is irreversible.
Yeah, no, that's... And I think it's like I said, it's going to get worse before it gets better. A lot worse.
How do you exactly use suppose going through important factory, for example, that was built in a car-cultured area, regulations aside?
What do you mean, Darius?
Like, you said about self-sacrifice. Well, in the city, you're going to meet a lot of opposition.
I mean, opposition in terms of what? Like, give me an example.
Like people in their homes, like if they have to move out into some other place.
I mean,
that's going to take like 5 years to build.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have
organized.
That's the thing. It never took that long to build stuff. You had rail lines and massive projects in America being built within the span of just a few years. I mean, look at how long it's taken for California. They're still building viaducts over there. And I agree with, I believe it was Armchair Urbanist who came out with a video against, was it Real Life Lore? But channel basically saying, California high-speed rail. Yeah. California high-speed rail. Yeah, and I commented, look, California high-speed rail is not a failure, but it certainly is not a good spot, to say this is a great example of high-speed rail in the works. It's not failed because it hasn't failed completely. But there's a lot of points in there that are really points that, should not be copied for other high-speed rail or other large transit projects. For example, a lot of the waste of money, a lot of the bureaucracy behind the California High-Speed Rail Authority, hiring dozens of different. Oh man, jeez, I am off today. The hiring of outside. Oh man, somebody help me out over here.
Probably endorsing the project, right?
Yeah, you had. I have the word off the tip of my tongue, man. Not investors. Oh man. But they had a lot of people chiming in on the project that they gave them. They were giving them millions of dollars, and it was a whole bunch of conflicting evidence. It was just for, lining other friends' pockets. And that was sort of the issue that you've gone with California. Now they're still building. It's not a complete failure. Honestly, California is further down the line than Texas Central Railway. Even though Texas Central Railway is, in my opinion, a better idea and something that would be better done in execution, look at the reality of it. Texas Central Railway could be very well, dead in the water right now. Is they're in a quote-unquote hibernation phase. So, yeah.
Well, actually, I don't know what's going on with Brightline there in Las Vegas. They haven't started construction. I've heard that there are they're around over there, but possibly they're going to construct this year, or probably early as 2023.
Yeah, and that's a lot easier because, again, that's public land. It's a lot easier to go ahead and get that done, and obviously a lot of the political, people in charge over there are far more receptive to having Brightline. As we've seen a lot of these conferences in Capitol Hill, they're like begging for Brightline to come to everybody else's area. So seeing Brightline there and probably seeing that success, it's not going to be, far-fetched to say that Brightline will be running a train in California, a high-speed train in California, before California even lays one single line of track. I'm kind of being I'm kind of exaggerating a bit, but definitely by far 100% sure Brightline is going to have a functioning passenger rail system there before California even starts their own. So, and I've kind of made this point, it could be a possibility down the line because Wes Edens, the head of Fortress Investments, and a very vocal, he's been very. You don't see that from a lot of investment firms. The head of an investment firm supporting one of their own investments and being a vocal supporter of it. You maybe see it from Richard Branson from Virgin, but that's kind of a whole different story. But with Wes Edens, he says that there are about 20 other city pairs that you can definitely see this happening. And let's say, for example, if Texas, let's say worst case scenario, Texas Central Railway falls apart. The company goes up for sale or something like that, or it just basically goes into an eternal mode of hibernation, sort of like what Express West before Brightline got itself and bought Express West and took over that project to make it Brightline West. You could see something that once Brightline West gets itself moving forward, they can very much move on to the next step and go over to Texas and say, hey, we're going to take Texas Central Rail. Now we're going to make, Brightline Texas or something like that. And this is a company that has not only funding, but now they've had a lot of experience down the line of dealing with the same sort of stuff over in Florida, of dealing with, some of the same things over in California and Nevada. Now they're going to Texas. They know what was the reason why, they failed over there. They have a lot more connection. They have a lot more clout. And it's not like they can say, oh, Brightline is not a railroad company, because they're definitely running railroads. They're definitely running that. Now, they could go ahead and try to go say, well, Brightline is not a railway because, this other clause says it has to be a railway within Texas, Brightline can very well go ahead and play dirty, be sneaky, and let's say buy some shares into a short line railroad in Texas. Now they're technically a railroad company. Now they can use eminent domain. Now the oil companies there are just going to have to just go ahead and deal with it. But there's going to be more. There's going to be a lot of dissension. But yeah, they have to play dirty. They just have to. There's no honor, in playing by the rules in a system that deliberately wants to get rid of you. There's no honor in that.
That's the point. Well, anyways, I've heard about that, the conversations about Texas Central Railway, and I think there's only one representative in Congress that doesn't want to have made legislation, ridiculous legislation in Congress. So I don't know who it is. So I don't remember whose his name was.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of hard to remember, so many people's names and so many things going on a live stream. It's not like, I'm not running with notes right now on everything. I just went ahead and just read a whole bunch of articles and have them up on here to just get myself up to speed with what's going on in Texas. And most of everything that's saying over here is more or less the same sort of thing. I'm of the opinion, like we discussed back in the Discord group, that I think that there was some sort of worm-tongued figure, with his oily hands, with somebody that they're really cozy with on the Texas Supreme Court, saying, just keep this case on here, Texas Central Railway, it's on it's there's dissension within, they're really, at each other's throats over here. Just let's bring up the heat a little bit more, let's make it a little bit harder for them.
There is an imposter among them. We don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Now I got to get the Among Us little theme there. Let me see.
That's a bit sus.
Yeah,
really sussing.
I think so. No, that's not it. Oh, come on. No, that's a trap remix. Oh, whatever. Okay, you guys know what I'm saying. I can just do it. Boom, 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 boom. Doo, doo, doo. There you are. And I've never played Among Us. I know what the game is about. I get the premise and everything else, and I've seen, some people play it. But, yeah, it is. There's definitely... And it's not like they had to have somebody inside, because that's you're going. It gets a little too far fetched when people say oh, there was somebody on the inside of Texas Central Railway that was relaying down to to the oil companies and to Ben Lehman and stuff like that. No, we're not saying that. I mean, it's pretty open.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's pretty open knowledge
that
it's been hard for Texas Central to be moving forward. That they've been falling behind on what their goals were. And look, Brightline went through the same thing. We've been in the muck of it in these the commission meetings and in the board meetings as well, and we've seen what happened with when it was still all aboard Florida. Their initial estimate to get started was going to be 2016, and it took longer. It took to 2018 because of just all the crap that they had to go through bureaucratically. I'm sorry?
Yeah, all the nitty in the Treasure Coast.
Yeah.
I remember those days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Brightline could have very well ended up just like what Texas is going through right now. But it takes a lot because of, I wouldn't say, it's because of us that we did it, but it was because of a lot of efforts not just from Brightline, but from a lot of local citizens and local people who came together to advocate in support of Brightline, was it changed the minds of a lot of political people over there and a lot of commissioners, etc., to change their minds and say, okay, there's actually a public group and a public outcry in support of this group. You know, and that's the thing. You have to have support by numbers. You know, having the numbers out there and supporting that makes sense. And again, I'm not on the ground. I'm Texas to say, you know, where this came up. You know, but it could very well be, you know, the other reason why is because, you know, Texas is, you know, one of the biggest oil-friendly states in the union. Okay, let's be honest. So you have a lot of powerful oil lobbyists in there that have made it completely hard for this to happen. It's not, you know, yeah, the landowners and everything going on is definitely a part of it, but they're basically like what happened with the opponents of Brightline, you know, Florida Not All Aboard and Citizens Against the Rail. The shadowy figure behind that, yeah, was you had you know, the former CEO of American Airlines.
Florida, and even especially in Miami, there was actually a lot of people that wanted it, that want it.
Yeah, including me also.
Yeah, Bob Cranford.
Including me also. I was in Miami, but I wanted a high-speed rail system in Florida. I was a Florida native. I lived there for 12 years, actually. So I love trains. When I was 12, I used to ride on the Tri-Rail. And seeing systems like this, it's kind of mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean, you had people like Bob Crandall, who was, you know, was the CEO of American Airlines.
Demetrius,
Yeah, go ahead.
Didn't you used to ride Tri-Rail as well? And didn't we all ride Tri-Rail to Palm Beach one time?
Yeah, we did, and you know, it's like I said, I'm not, you know, one to just go ahead and say, because that's the issue. You know, you have a lot of people, especially on the left, that they'll go ahead and say, oh, we're for, you know, we're for the peons transportation. You know, like they have Transit Day in Miami, and like several other places, like in New York City and stuff like that. And then you'll have like the mayor of New York City, you know, use the subway for the first time and can't even go ahead and swipe their transit card. You know what I'm saying? So this, again, there's very much a big disconnect between the political system, the upper echelon of the elites versus, you know, normal, average, everyday people. Okay, and I use Tri-Rail, you know, on a daily basis to get to work when I was working for Brightline at the time, you know, down in Coral Gables, and when I was working, you know, at different firms down in Coral Gables. I use the same sort of thing. You know, they weren't that far ahead, different. But, you know, go ahead, take Tri-Rail, then take a bus down over there because there's no really other transit system down there. And I've suffered through all the woes of going through transit. You know, buses going late or buses breaking down a lot more often than they should be. Or Tri-Rail having an issue or something like that. Or a suicide that happened in front of the Tri-Rail train and seeing the bloody mess afterwards, you know. I've seen it. I've done it. I've gone through, you know, all of it, and I share with everybody's pains when it comes to American transit. But yeah, look, this is the issue in the United States. Look, here's the article from the Miami Herald. Here's ex-airlines leader joins opposition to All Aboard Florida. So it's, you know, it's not... This is not, you know, something to say that, oh, you're just talking, you know, you're just making this up. No, this is for real. You know, you have these people going on there and going against it. And then saying, oh, well, they don't have any more investments into...
Conspiracy is real.
Yeah.
That's
the problem, you know, and that's the thing that people don't understand. Now, you know, it's not like we're going to go ahead and, you know, and say we're making a big deal and saying, oh, look, we found the answer, we found a solution, and screaming out. Because most people are not going to care. Okay, let's be honest. You know, we
mentioned the CEO of Spirit at one time. And don't even mention.
Oh yes, yeah. When I caught him going ahead and saying that high speed rail was the thing. Yeah, I asked him there, and he just like point blankly lied. Now, Spirit Airlines is a horrible airline company, honestly, and unfortunately I'm forced to go ahead and say it. Now, I'm not going to be scared and say that they're going to kick me off the airline because I'm not like a big person online. Okay, let's be honest. There's not going to be, and most people in Spirit Airlines, most of the attendants there are not watching transit channels and saying that's him. That's the one that bad-mouthed Spirit Airlines. Let's kick him off the plane. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I'm forced to take it because there's no other airline that goes in between Indianapolis and Miami directly. In most times, it just sucks that again, what freedom do we have that we're forced between two decisions? Take the car and take take 24 hours to get down to wherever it is you're trying to get to, or take the airline and be subject to the woes of airline travel in modern day America.
You either have for effective travel, the only two options are either driving down or by car.
Yeah, and it's not to say, we need high-speed rail so, Demetrius can go ahead and go between New York and Miami or Indianapolis and Miami.
But as far as Indianapolis, take that thought back for a second, but as far as Indianapolis goes, planes are better for that role of long-distance travel.
Yeah, that's where it is. Everything has a place where it works.
We are a pretty big country, the third biggest in the world.
Or, for example, international flights as well. There are airlines that could service, for example, anywhere. You could fly from Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood International Airport to, for example, San Domingo, Las Americas International Airport. There is a place for planes.
Yeah, everything has a place and where it can work. Okay.
Now, where there's something that's really out of place is that there are flights on Airbus or Boeing 737s from Miami to Orlando. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, I've taken some of those, and there's a purpose for it. And look, we've gotten the footage of it. We've asked people who worked for. I believe it was either United or American Airlines, but it was at one of the conferences, and I said, what is going to be your, how are you going to react with, Brightline, in between Miami and Orlando? And they said, well, we don't want international passengers, let's say if there's a passenger getting off from Orlando, we don't want them to go ahead and go on the on the train, so we'll go ahead and try to package them to go ahead and stay on our plane and take a plane from Orlando down to Miami. Which, that's the thing. They're trying to just keep the market that way. And they'll go ahead and get, funding for that, as other airline companies have done in the past.
Trying to find a loophole where... practical loopholes, that is.
Yeah, and look, there's a difference between international flights and domestic, because the issue is, I believe it's about 70% of flights here in the United States are short-haul flights. Which, that's definitely something of a role where high-speed rail works. It's in between around the sweet spot of 250 miles up to a max of around 600, 650. I'm kind of pushing it there with 650. Definitely the spot between 350, 500 miles, and you have a lot of city pairs within that sort of sweet spot where high-speed rail works. But that's the issue, is that you have a lot of airline companies that have owned that. Like you have in Texas, okay? Southwest Airlines, one of the biggest airlines in America, got their start from short-haul flights between Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. The Texas Triangle, as they call it. Yeah, and then in the 80s, they went ahead and lobbied to stop the TGV that would come up to go ahead against them.
There are places where you cannot fly a plane. There are too short to fly or too long to drive.
Yeah, that's where high-speed rail comes in.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anything else you guys want to share, or? Alright, guys. Well, let me see what's going on in the chat over here. let me see. Philip Vecchio, Amtrak from Rensselaer, New York to Victorville, California. There are so many opportunities to increase rail utilization along the way to increase ridership and increase speed and passenger demand. Yeah, again, you're talking about sort of transcontinental railroad. It's again, look, transcontinental high-speed rail sounds cool and it sounds great as a concept, but you're not going to see that happen, because of the result. It's like, oh, we want transcontinental high-speed rail. It's really building upon, well, we want to get from New York to Chicago, and then New York, Chicago's built. It's like, well, now we got to get to Chicago to Milwaukee, and then it goes from there and builds out from there. It's like, maybe, somewhere down the line, you get Chicago to St. Louis, and then St. Louis to, I don't know, Colorado, Denver or something like that. I'm kind of pushing it. That's a little bit too far. But you kind of see where I'm saying, maybe in the south of United States Southwest, there's a lot of city pairs down by there, Tucson, Arizona, to, let's say, cities in New Mexico or to California. That's something that makes sense. And again, I do say with the... because I think it was Real Life Lore that went ahead and said that, California high-speed rail should have just gone ahead and upgraded Amtrak Surfliner, which is, that's a kind of a silly thing to do. The Amtrak Surfliner is sort of its own thing. What they should have done was, at least in California high-speed rail's perspective, was just go ahead and do what they've been planning to do anyway, is make their own high-speed rail line, very much like the Tokaido Shinkansen did in JNR in the 1960s. Okay, that you still have the slower rail line system there that's going to be cheaper, that's going to have more stops, that still exists, and you still have that in places like Japan and places in Europe. But you also have the faster connection, the high-speed rail connection. Okay, so both of those, it's not to say, oh, we're going to get rid of all the slow rail. No, you want to have the options. Okay, so if somebody wants to drive a car, or if somebody wants to take the regional rail, if somebody wants to take high-speed rail, if somebody wants to take an airline flight between, let's say, New York and Washington, D.C., you have flights available between D.C. and New York City, but the more than 70% of the market share is in Amtrak, and particularly, I believe 50% is with the Acela. So you have that working in the United States, and the Acela does make a profit. The Northeast Corridor, in fact, does make a profit. It's the only one, apart from a couple of other, like the Auto Train and the Surfliner and some other, I believe the Hiawatha Express as well, between Chicago and Milwaukee. They do make a profit. So the misconception that rail does not make a profit is an absolute lie, and it's false. Okay, and that's where again you have people that are in the upper echelons of the elite, or CEOs of airline companies like Spirit Airlines going ahead and saying these lies, either because, and I don't think it's because he was typically or really afraid of it. It's because that's his mindset, and you have that mindset that's how they believe in. So it's not like you can really change their mind and say, well, here's the results and whatnot. They're just they're not going to blank out all of a sudden, and their software is just going to flash over and change it. And it's like, yeah, you're right. They're just going to go ahead and say, yeah, that's cool and all, but rail doesn't make a profit, even though you show them the results. So, yeah, that's why I don't try to go ahead and try to bring in other people that are going to be against it anyway. What's the point? You're just talking to a brick wall.
I've seen, I was thinking about a high-speed rail between Oregon and Seattle. It's possible to make a high-speed rail line in the Northwest.
Yeah, I think that was something like the what was it? The Cascade High-Speed Rail, or there's a big plan that I think that I believe even Bill Gates was going to throw in like $200 billion or something like that, even though he probably isn't. But I think that's. Somebody remind me again what it was called, and we can bring it back up. Let me see. Grambo and David Mitchell have their hands up. Let me go ahead and bring them in so they can go ahead and speak. Last call for speakers, and then we'll go ahead and start winding it down, guys.
Hello.
Yep.
Can you
We
hear
were
me?
kind of waiting on you, man.
No worries, no worries. Okay, the floor is yours, guys. Whatever you want to, take it from here.
All right,
But
Demo.
before we start, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, man.
Okay, finally, because Discord has been a huge iffy on my end. I'm so sorry if you guys couldn't hear me. Well,
Glad
I
it
did
was
want
right there.
I know. But anyways, have you guys heard of a familiar project? Now, if you are in Texas, living in the DFW area, I think I shared a website, or at least there's been a lot of construction happening somewhere closer around the downtown area. It's called known as the Panther Island Project. It's basically the redevelopment project of, I would say, it's going to be like a mixed-use development project that will be happening. Now, as you may know, it's already starting at the first phase, and the second phase is going to be a lot of work. But the result of it is that it's going to have like a new, a very pedestrian-focused area, loads of entertainment, and I would say this could be a possibility of, I would say, adding like, I would not say a light rail, but more of a tram system along with it. But boy, do we ever need it. Any thoughts?
I'm looking at it right now, and I'm just saying from the offset, is something that makes sense. It does look cool. So are they planning some sort of like rail development? I mean, at least from an urban development perspective, it does look like a good use of space.
Absolutely, but also a lot of reconstruction around there too. But also that, here's the ironic thing. As far as I've heard, it was supposed to be shut down, but apparently it got loads of funding from the military corps, of all things.
I see that. Yeah, the district is impacted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers flood control project. However, no federal money is being used to accomplish the city's sustainable growth goals for the district. Phase 1 development in the interior Panther Island is happening now. The development of Phase 1 can happen with or without the bypass channel and associated infrastructure being built. So they're starting with mixed-use development. Okay, and this is what we've all been saying, right? This makes sense, okay? You can't just throw train, and just expect things to happen. You have to build up upon that. So they have, starting with the mixed-use development, they got the foundation of that there. A park system.
Each mode of transportation has its roles to play.
Exactly, using roundabouts, which, by the way, roundabouts over here in Indiana, especially in the northern Indianapolis area, we have the most amount of roundabouts than any other city per square mile. And they're definitely superior to the intersections. I don't know why people keep getting confused by roundabouts, especially American drivers are so afraid of using roundabouts to an unhealthy extent. It's really silly.
I know.
There we go. River walks and walkways. That's very nice. Fixed transit line. Again, I guess to connect the city and in between most of the places there in the city. Trinity River Promenade, Town Lake Marina, Houseboat District, Phase 2. Yeah, this is the type of stuff that, should work. And again, they're bringing up like what they had back in Dallas. Dallas used to have a streetcar system too. So it's not like to say that, oh, this is just silly leftist liberal stuff. No, here's the thing, guys, and especially like today, if somebody from 100 years ago, if you took a leftist from 100 years ago and show them what the country is now, oh man, I mean, they would absolutely lose their minds. Okay, they'd be like, what?
This is why no, but here's the truth. This is why at the end of the day, I reject the term left and right, because it's become nothing more but an anti-concept as a means of keeping the masses distracted, but all else keeping everyone divided on the most useless of issues.
It's true.
But also on the other thing is that I just got back. I would say a day before. We just got back from a picnic of an epic. I would say a water park, very wonderful. And we just passed by and we got lost a little bit trying to head back home. And we just seen this toll road and how well managed it is. The fact that it looks very well structured compared to the ordinary national freeway really tells you something about. And once we got in, the way how it looks, once we got back, it was not only so hot, but the way that you can see the smog from the downtown Fort Worth area, it was so awful. I hate the freeways on how the way it looks, and I hated it. I freaking hated it so badly because not only the amount of traffic jams, I tell you, it is so awful, and the fact that there are so many useless asphalt from the very left side of my view. Once we got back, it just completely much tells you something of which why I hated the freeways, and I blame the National Highway Aid Act. That is the reasons why the automotive lobbyists are freaking kings and queens who rule over all.
You can blame that on Eisenhower too. Eisenhower was one who did
yes, I have a lot to say on that idiot that is Eisenhower. I have no doubt that he's the one who signed in the legislation. That is the reason why everything is so dull and depressing and brutalistic.
And the thing is, look, and let's be fair when it comes to presidents of the United States, because a lot of people say that, oh, I hate the president for this and that. Look, our current president has no clue what he's doing. Okay, let's be honest. He's not even, awake half the time. Okay, he can't even ride. He can't even ride a bike. All right, but
he's a walking corpse. The fact that I would rather have a dog as president who does absolutely nothing, but at least he's most appealable, is a more interesting current leader of the free world.
Yeah, I know. But here's the thing, it goes back to Eisenhower, okay? And let's look. There are people who could be great generals. Ike was a great general. Definitely not as good as Patton. But when it came to him being president, I think he, even at the end of his term, he also, explained that there is a military-industrial. Everybody knows that speech, and then goes to say, "Oh, there's no such thing." Yes, there is a such thing as a military-industrial complex. Because I think like him, like Nixon, Nixon was very much a flawed character that had a good heart, but he had a lot of terrible advisors, and he was just. He just kind of rubber stamped stuff and didn't know what the heck was going on. I believe a lot of presidents fall into the same thing. Trump himself was very much on hand to falling into the same sort of folly. As a candidate, he became a much different sort of person when he became as president. And I'm not gonna vote anyway in 2024, and he's probably not gonna win at this rate anyway. But
I'm not voting at all.
Yeah, look, I say on a national stage, it doesn't mean anything. It's really all just a show. It's bread and circus to keep everybody.
It's been a show, Demetrius.
Oh yeah,
it's always been a show.
Yeah, but
the fact that there are more and more folks waking up to this and say, you know what, I'm not voting for this. If this is going to be a little play on words, and everything's a stage, as the saying goes. The world is the stage, and the stage is a world of entertainment, and people are tired of it. And I wish to see more people say, you know what, I'm not going to vote for this crap. I'm not going to vote anything at all because it's useless, it's boring, and it's not only not working for my self-interest, it's not working for anybody's interest. Individuals alone. And I can pretty much assure you, they will try to do their best to come up with an actual excuse to say, why we're in this mess. Oh, you can blame this side. Or you can blame Russia for the current crap heap of inflation and the amount of high gas prices, and also everything else that completely, in this case, tried to make sure that a depression soon ensues. Now, I do not want to make a prediction that hopefully it does not jinx me that the 2030s is going to be the modern day version of the Great Depression. I hope not.
Who says 2030s? I mean, I see it happening within the next several months. I mean, not several months, but definitely it's going to get worse. But yeah, and I do agree with you, Grambo, what you said. Especially when it comes to federal politics, it's very much a show. They're not really in power of really coming up with stuff. It's very much based on special interest. When it comes to not to say, all voting is just a waste of time and stuff like that. No, absolutely. It means to take the focus away from the national level and start focusing on your state and focusing on your local area. Like you just talked about here, this Panther Island sort of thing. People in the area should be in support of this. This is where you have to get involved. If you got to focus on what's going on in your own backyard. Okay? Instead of not in my backyard, focus on your backyard.
Yeah, but what I'll be on about,
does have some implication.
I'll be honest about it.
Look at the gas prices, for example, and look at the state of affairs. All that changed from the federal level and how it's impacting the local level.
Yeah, and it's
Even though some places like Florida obviously have better local governors
but that's
than others.
okay. But it goes to the point, Darius, that I'm saying. If you can be able to separate yourself from what's going on a federal stage and be able to prepare yourself at a state and local level, you are far more prepared and better padded against any sort of disruptions in the economy with what's going on. Like, for example, California is very much tied to what happens at a federal level. And not only that, they've kind of messed themselves up on a state level, so they're going to hurt even worse than most other states.
Houston did more. He did more than just messed up on the state level. The fact that there are more and more people are having an exodus with the state of California. And there was a CNN, NBC, and I hate when I reference that, but they did a survey about 60% of people who are leaving California, and you know where they're heading to, and it's not Texas, mind you.
Idaho.
You know where? No, Mexico.
Oh yeah, that yes, yeah, no, that is.
The first guess would be Florida.
Let's be fair. A lot of California was coming in from Mexico anyway, so you know they're just kind of they're kind of going back and forth between the same place anyway at this rate.
Oh, guys, like, I'll be honest, like, I knew Trump or Biden would still screw our country, you know? I knew what one of them, our country would have still got screwed.
No, David. I'm going to be honest with you. I lost all respect to Trump the moment he never did pardon that one actual true journalist that now I fear for his life that they may silence him. You know who that is? Freaking Julian Assange.
Yeah, that's
not pardoning him was one of the greatest freaking failures in history. And I lost all trust within the political side altogether because I viewed it as not only as a joke, I viewed it as one of the greatest shows in history, and I lost all trust in it, and I'm trying to do my best to never pay attention to it.
Hey, well, I'm autistic, and I know about it.
Oh no, I'm autistic too, but the only thing is that I'm just dipping my toes into it, and the fact that I'm learning more information about it not only makes me even more unhappy, let alone cynical, but also for me to be more aware of the crazy show that I'm basically looking at the back of the veil.
Yeah.
Oh,
Everything that's presented in front, there's always a veil behind it. Just like I learned more about how the modernists and the modernists and the progressive movement, I would say in general, is what ruins cities when it comes to introducing the heavy overloading of zoning laws, and not just that, on how they're more focused of helping the incentivization from the state by the big oil and the automotive lobbyists.
Rambo, me and my wife are autistic. Like, me and my wife, we're both autistic like you, man. But I'll be honest.
What about a flaming autist? Because that's basically me.
All right, let's keep on topic here. I think you guys are making a fantastic point over here that they're, let's put it this way, to trust in a strong man or to trust in somebody who talks a big game and then gets themselves embellished in our broken political system really goes to show that, it's really a failure of a political system that we have. If even the guy who talks all the sort of things that that everybody agrees with, and then all of a sudden goes into office and does not push in everything. And the same thing happened with Obama, honestly, because Obama was basically the Democrats' version of Trump, and I would say Trump was the Republican version of Obama. I'm going to be fair, honestly. It was a lot of big promises from Obama too, and I never liked him. When he got elected, and I say, okay, well, maybe he'll fix up, racial issues in America, and it just got worse. But and again, the big promise from Obama to bring in high-speed rail, that never happened. It was just $12 billion to Amtrak. Yeah, but it didn't amount to anything. It was, again, a lot of talk, a lot of promises, nothing getting done. 4 years later, a lot of talk, a lot of promises, nothing getting done. Rinse, repeat, 4 years later. Same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
all bark and no bite.
Yeah.
Am I right?
No, go ahead. You guys run for a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and get myself a drink, and you guys can just keep or at least run it for like 40 seconds.
What are the 20 cities said for high-speed rail that they would talk about with Brightline?
Definitely one big one was Atlanta to Charlottesville. That's been one that's been talked about. Yeah, North Carolina.
Texas Central Rail, please. Could Brightline buy that? Because as well as the one in California, the California Rail project in general was an absolute crazy show of a disaster. And the fact that not only the heavy mismanagement, the leadership over there is a joke. The fact that the planning of wanting to start from Los Angeles to San Francisco, where the first place should have started from San Diego, mind you.
Yeah, I agree with that. It should have been San Diego to Los Angeles. They should have just built a brand new line in between there to just show that it works. Just like just like every other country has done. France did the same thing. It was Lyon to Paris. They did not start it in the middle of the French countryside. The same thing in Spain. They did not go in the middle of the Spanish countryside. They did it Madrid to Barcelona. The same thing with with Germany. It was Berlin to, I believe, Frankfurt. The same thing with Japan. It was Tokyo to Osaka. So why did California say, well, that's what works, so we're going to do Bakersfield into Fresno? Where it's not that many people in between there. And they were against the project the whole entire way, and they've been, still, complaining about it. Not as much now anymore, because at this point it's a moot point, and the California is just going to build it anyway. But they've just been building viaducts.
Let alone nobody asked for that. And on the basis when it comes to France, this is why I am jealous when it comes to Europe in general. Now, although its politics is much crazier than the one here in the U.S., but I would say when it comes to transportation-wise, I envy. When it comes to the autobahns or just the freeway in general over there in Europe in general, because they don't cut through communities, they don't cut through towns or cities, they go around them. And the fact that they have, and not only Germany, I would rather adopt that model than everybody else, but the rest of the others, the reason why they have less accidents, not only one, they have a higher speed limit, and second, either no speed limits at all. The fact that they have less accidents and better improved drivers really makes me more angrier and let alone envious of them that they have better drivers here in the U.S.
Oh yeah, and
that's all I can say.
Again, it's because also there's a lot more training for the drivers. It's a lot harder to get a license in Germany, and that's by design. They want you to make sure that you can be able to operate a vehicle. And that also goes into the extent that why manual transmission. I mean, a lot. There's still
Israel's another country that had it right.
All right, but let's keep with this. Let's at least keep with the German example, okay? Because they made it harder for people to get licenses. Yes, it is more expensive to get a car, but you don't need to get a car in Germany. The same thing like in Japan, okay? But again, you're expected to be able to know how to operate an automobile, especially on a manual transmission. In the United States, it's different. Why is there a lot more automatic transmissions in America? Because most people don't really know how to drive or operate a vehicle. All you have to do is just go to the DMV. The hardest test you have to do is a multiple choice test. And there are people that I know that have problems that shouldn't be driving, A, number one, and B, they've had to take the test 2 or 3 times. If somebody fails that, and it's a very easy test. If you fail that test, you should not be driving. Okay, it's very simple. That's a very basic test. But it's made by design to make it easy here in the United States for people to drive an automobile because it gets you into the payland to go ahead and get an automobile.
The road there.
Yeah, you gotta.
Sorry, continue.
No,
I'm sorry. I'll continue.
No, it's okay. But yeah, that's what it does. It gets you to buy an automobile, and now you're stuck and shackled to the whole entire thing. Now you have to get insurance. Now you have to go ahead and get it. And then again, there's some places where people don't even get insurance or a license. They just get a car anyway, and then that creates even more issues. And the reason why is because there's no other way to get around the United States conveniently and consistently on time without an automobile in most places.
I would say it's how they design the roads is what makes it more interesting. Is that they don't make it too wide or too narrow, especially on the roads that would lead into the very urban or the metro areas, but also outside of it. Like, for example, the outside of the of the city is where you can enter into into like an autobahn or just a freeway in particular, but it's not very much too wide or too narrow. But they designed it to make sure that you stay on that lane, but also you get the change lanes as well. I mean, this is why I admire more of the people of Holland. The fact that there was also a protest that took there during the 60s. The fact that there were loads of cars, especially at the time, and there was huge protests against that. The fact that I would say, this is why I am jealous of the people of the Netherlands, that they could have ended up into a kind of future, or at least a kind of ultimate future where they end up as the United States.
Oh,
When
yeah.
it comes to the freeways, the fact that they didn't makes me envious of them even more.
Yeah, there was that experiment that they were doing in the 80s and into a bit of the 90s, where they were copying a lot of what the American system was, and a lot of European cities also did the same thing. But they very quickly reversed course because you had a very vocal community there of local people in the area saying this is ridiculous, it's not working, and you know it's a different system where you have, instead of political the political bureaucracy beholden to the elite shareholders, you have a political system which is beholden to your constituents, to the actual people who, voted you in. And that's where you have that system works. You still have that in Europe, where you have like places like direct democracy, like in Switzerland, some of these cantons in Switzerland. They just basically get people out to the town square and just say, okay, raise your hand if we should put in this ordinance, yes or yay or nay, and then just have people raise their hand, and that's it. That's the extent of where democracy basically works. But in the United States, that's where you have the issue come in, because there's so much. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I just want to say this quick. Well, my problem with democracy in general is just basically mob rule, like majoritarianism over the individual, which I basically had that mindset.
Yeah, and that's sort of the issue that we're seeing here in this country right now, which is why things can't really work. You can have people vote on like what you have with was it Prop 1A or Prop 8 in California? Because I know those are the two big ones there, but whatever the proposition that got California high-speed rail going. But you have people.
The way we have it in this country is that we have it in a federalized system where every state has its say and has power.
But also heavily centralized. We're in a heavily centralized system where no local or regional area of people that they live there have a say when it comes to wanting to improve their communities, but also wanting to make sure that it's more pedestrian focused and less car dependent. And also, I will say this: when it comes to the trucking industry, is it wrong for me to say that I kind of like the trucks in Europe much better than here in the U.S.?
Yeah, and the thing is with the lorries in Europe are made for different roads too, and they're not taking as much goods and tonnage as the trucks over here in America are doing. So it's very much a reason why it's based on that environment. That's the only reason why.
Okay. And
Dimitri, I did bring that up. I was in Charlotte, North Carolina over a week ago on the floor, and did see their white rail system. It looked pretty good.
Where?
Charlotte, North Carolina commuter rail system, like their white rail system?
Yeah.
I actually seen it. I actually caught a couple video of it and posted it on YouTube. Or at least one video to be more exact. But I'll be honest, we do need to start focusing on our rail system. With the 20 cities, there are probably more than 20 city parents that can work for high-speed rail. There are probably more than that.
Yeah, and again, it's
one.
yeah.
That's the thing, David, but not a nationalized one. I think I'm for. This is why a national high-speed rail system won't work, because they will not have the very local and regional area people to also have a say as well. Which is why I basically love how they do things over there. It's not very heavily nationalized, but also more heavily focused in the more local and regional areas when it comes to high-speed rail, while also maintaining the very well connections of allowing people to make various switches of which direction do they wish to go.
Yeah, remember,
like, for
and
example,
it's
you wish to go way up to Chicago, you head over to this platform. You wish to go head west to Los Angeles, head to this platform here as well. And not just Los Angeles, you can probably stay like Dallas or Fort Worth, probably Louisiana, or basically head over to Little Rock or Tulsa. You get to choose there, but also they have like regional rails too that can connect to also by one of the smaller towns as well as small cities as well that are heavily not just industrial cities or towns, but also that can get also to the resources there as well by freight.
Like, I'm going to bring it up. Like, I was talking to Dimitri about it on last week Livestream. You know TexRail in Texas where you are? Like,
yes. I wanted to ride one. I really do wish I could ride one.
You know how the European type locomotives?
Yes, I've seen them.
I would think something like that could work here in Charleston, from Charleston to Somerville, like, because Charleston to Somerville only 27 miles, like from the route that they use, you know? Because I actually did the route, like I measured the route out, and it's 27 miles. It was the same from downtown Charleston to Somerville, like to downtown Somerville. And I got to thinking, you know, because we already have tracks built in, we could utilize those tracks, but we'll have to fight with Norfolk Southern and CXX to use them, you know, because it's a commuter rail, and you know how freight railroads are with commuter rails right now.
Yeah.
But
I tell you.
Yeah, there was something. Speaking of, I know we were talking about this in the conversation about the Netherlands, and I have it up on the screen, where they did go ahead. They used to have mostly waterways in this area of Utrecht, where they drained the whole entire river to go ahead and build an American style type of roadway, and then people got ticked off with it later on and said put back the river, and they were able to do that. So they were able to reverse that. They have tried that. They did the same sort of thing that America has done, putting highways right through the middle of cities. And they said, well, that was a terrible idea. It only increased the amount of congestion within the city. It decreased the lifestyle of the city. It was just a terrible idea. And look, if you look at here in the 1970s, this looks no different than what some American cities were looking like. They had big giant parking lots. Basically the urban decay all over the place, and then this big giant ugly highway going in through the middle of the city.
Despotic, lifeless, almost depressing to the point where it explains a lot of today's youth committing suicides, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I honestly think, and I've made this point. Honestly, I think the suburbs have created more mass shooters and more people that are just messed up than anything else in America could have. I mean, it's honestly.
And the homeowners associations for that garbage.
Yeah, it's a hot take, but it's prove me wrong, because the thing is with suburbs, you create. Look, you look at any American suburb in America, and I think it was also not just about bikes who did this sort of thing too. There's communities in America like, oh, I'm afraid to let my kids outside. There's all there is outside of suburbs is just road and grass. And I don't see, you go to any suburbs, you don't see really kids playing with their neighbors or going outside or anything like that. Maybe in the beginning of the suburbanization sort of experiment in the 1950s, you kind of had that, but then it just sort of just leveled off. You have a higher amount of obesity.
I'll be right back, I'm sorry.
No worries. You have a higher amount of obesity in suburbs. You have a higher amount of mental disorders in suburbs. Okay, that's not a way to make a community. It's not a natural way of how people have made communities. People have made communities in urban areas because of the proximity and because they're close to each other. Let's say there's communities like in New York, you have the Italian communities or Polish communities and something like that. Living in sort of different places all next to each other.
Are forced to adjust to one another.
Yeah, and then you have in rural areas, you do have communities. Yeah, people are further away from living with each other, but they have to be more dependent on working with each other in order to get goods, in order to live off the land, in order to live with each other, to barter, and to help each other through there. In a suburb, you don't have that. You don't have that sort of community that happens. Yeah, there's maybe one or two neighbors that they talk over here and stuff like that. but when the kids are playing, they kind of just play in their own backyard. They don't play with each other or anything like that. You don't really have adults. Like I've said this before, you don't have adults communicating with each other except to hey, I'm gonna go on vacation for like a week. Watch my house. That's basically the extent of the conversation. Or, hey, did you see the game yesterday, Sunday? Oh man, Jerry Jones Jr. the third on the Brooklyn Panthers, got their 3-point home run. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm being sarcastic over here, but that's basically what the suburban experiment has amounted to in terms of a community. It hasn't amounted to anything, better than what we've had. It's been a disaster. Anyway, anybody else want to say anything on that? Let me see. Does anybody else in the audience want to jump on in or anything? We have Focus 9912. Okay. Again, anybody has in the audience right now? These are the last people that can be able to put their hands up, and we're closing this off max at 11:15 Eastern time. So Focus, you can come back on. You can come on board, and as well as Grambo. How you doing, man?
Actually, I'm the one just now, the Shamel the name. Actually, my name is Shamel, but for now, I just call me Focus.
How you doing?
Yeah, right. Seeing this turn into American based club. We have American based clubs. So, it's alright. To be honest, but
Well, I had
I think to be fair, in terms of, for me personally, sorry.
Okay. No worries. I was I don't know. I was having a little bit of trouble understanding him, but hey, look, we're having an open forum, so it's only fair.
Well, I just wanted to say I got back from a phone call. That's the reason why I left. But also, I would say I wanted to add on the basis of how, especially how people around their houses, they used to plant crops like agriculture.
Grambo, you there?
And this is even before. Yes, I'm still here. I've been a little bit interrupted.
Okay.
Still there?
Yep. Geez, and I thought I was having connection issues and stuff like that. Seems everybody's been having a bit of issues today. Okay, well, hey, at least the least of my issues today are just the air conditioning, But with all the noise, just pretend we're on a train.
Yeah. Well, anyways, about the Panther Island, I think there is also another mixed-use development project that's happening right next to the county where I'm at, Richland Hills. I would say they're also starting a mixed-use development project as well.
Okay.
And on the other, and I agree of what you said about when it comes to a healthy community. But here's another thing I wanted to say: a healthy and also prosperous one must be openly voluntary to those who wish to be a part of it, rather than forced into it and trying to make a means of patting themselves on the back to make themselves feel good. It must be in the interest of those individuals who wish to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I agree. Look, and I understand where everybody's politics are, especially mine. Again, it's we're having this kind of, to go ahead and have an excuse also to politically pontificate and kind of have our say of things. But I'm not going to say that, we shouldn't be doing any of this or anything like that, but it is kind of fair, because I know some people do complain, you guys get too much into politics and stuff like that. Well, it is political. It's the reason why, this country's going through this. Not entirely, yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I don't want the whole channel to turn political. That's the other thing,
That's the point, but that's the thing about wanting to have a discussion about this is anything but political, but rather the opposite is anti-political.
As in anti-political to the political system now, or what's the context there?
The discussion about wanting of that community, on how do we resolve the issues of the community as well as everything else, whether it be about fixing cities and the metro areas, along with how do we connect them, especially rather than having a huge centralized broad system for which the awful things which we have now, but rather we should look for a more local and regionalized approach to it.
Oh yeah, and I definitely agree. I think in the last 2 or so hours of this discussions that we've all been having, there's definitely at least 10,000 times the amount of brain cells than what you see in Congress. Even though you can't really multiply by 0, you know what I'm saying. But it's still. I mean, that's the thing. We have these sort of discussions, and we can come up with a lot more solutions within 2 hours than what it's taken the American Senate and Congress within 20 years.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Let me see. David Mitchell has hands up. Okay, and that's it. Okay, guys. 11:15. The bar car is closing. Okay, everybody's got to go back to their staterooms. Okay, and stuff like that. Just keeping on with the theme of this. I know.
Oh, sorry, Patriot. Discord acted up.
What a drag.
I was trying to speak and it wouldn't let me say anything.
No worries.
Discord's moron, let's be honest.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I know I'm trying to speak and everybody's kind of speaking on top of each other. That's kind of like the whole problem with Discord and the internet in general. You're going to have that lag in between somebody speaking and then somebody speaking again, and then it just becomes everybody speaking on top of each other. So I'm trying to keep myself mute up here.
I'll bring that up. HOAs, they are horrible. Like, I actually talked about them on my YouTube channel before when it came to fans of trains. On my YouTube channel, like,
I'm calling it a night. Good night, everyone.
All right, good night, man.
Well, take care.
But I'll be honest, HOA, they are horrible. Like, the person who came up with them should be in prison, you know?
I would say being held accountable for making it an idea such as this, inventing the idea of suburbia, I would say.
Yeah. Suburbia and the HOAs that come with them are awful. Like, it's a, hey, you can't do that in your yard. Do what we have set on the rules, you know?
Because it's a self-serving system.
And not just that, but I think not just bikes. I'm sorry for the interruption, but I just want to say this. Not just bikes really did make a wonderful take on his latest video about not just people are less worried about allowing their kids to be out on their own, especially while heading to school. The fact that in the Netherlands, they have so much freedom compared to here in the U.S., that's kind of pretty sad. The fact that not only him as a father, or at least the story about this one father, who allowed their kids to not only to walk on their own to school, but the fact that he got reported by a state organization, an organization that is concerning about the safety of kids, not only wanted him arrested for that, but I'm like, it's his kid! What? Why the heck should he be arrested for?
Yeah, it's hypocritical in a country that, espouses freedom to be going ahead and getting the, getting the local authorities to go put the kid to jail.
This is how we got solitary isolationists and mass shooters in general, and not to mention those who just don't want to be anywhere, especially. This is how depression breeds. By Karens and by other moral idiots. Moral busybodies, I would say. Moral busybodies.
You meant Kevin?
Oh, don't get me started on the Kevin.
Yeah. No, but, you guys have a point, and it's the sort of thing of this whole suburban experiment that just, it's very much tied to that generation, right? So, I mean, it kind of, and I think everybody on our sides, and like you've all said before, it's less to do with political leanings, and as I believe, a lot more to do with generational thinking. Because we all agree here, we have people that are on the left over here, and a lot more that are on the right over here, more than some other Discord channels and transportation groups online and stuff like that. So that kind of makes us unique in a sense, right? But again, it goes to the point that, it's when we finally, get into control over here, we know sort of the direction where we need to take things and get away from this very toxic unnatural experiment that has taken the country into a wrong turn, because that's the thing. It has taken over morally, objectively, and it hasn't worked. Anybody that's saying that is just ignorant or is lying, you know?
Exactly.
The
And
point being for me that is that I don't desire control. In fact, I don't desire to control anybody. If it's anything which the desire is to control of myself, to take control of my life, allow myself to have the free will of choices and many varieties of choices, of which fates for which we carve on our own. Who do we wish to associate and disassociate with that are in our best self-interest? The fact that we are not even allowed to basically have that, it's no wonder people have this either mental breakdown or have a nervous break or just basically snaps.
Yeah, and let's be fair. They got, you know, more moral choices, because you don't want to be like the guy on stage, like in that libertarian convention where he just went up naked, literally just butt naked. You know, that's the thing. It's like, you know, again, when it comes to the point of, like I said, you know, freedom to what end? You know, it's not just freedom for freedom's sake. You know, it's freedom to do what's right by, you know, for everybody.
But according to whom? For whom's sake? Like, I know when it comes to morality in general, but to whom?
you did
To the eyes of...
I know, but it's like, you know, when we get to this sort of, you know, individualist versus community sort of thing, you know, humankinds have always, you know, humanity has always worked in a community type system, right? You know, whether you believe in, you know, in creationism or whether you believe in evolution, you know, it still goes up to the same thing. You had groups and communities that have come up in either circle that you believe in. So it's not just, you know, oh, caveman went out by himself and did whatever he wanted and smoked cave plant to do what he wanted, you know, just because he had the freedom to.
More within that, Demetrius. I would argue that societies and civilizations, they all incredibly emerged, not just by the choices of individuals, but also they emerged by association and disassociation through interactions with people. I will argue that ideas were exchanged when it comes to literacy, music, people, I would say materials, spices, even culture, for crying out loud. It has nothing to do when it comes to, on the basis of, when it comes to evolution or creationism, but rather on the basis of how things emerge, how societies emerge. It does not came from the more top-down, like, institutions of the political sphere or the elites in general, but they all came from the ground up. That's how the very uniqueness and how organic it is.
Yeah.
Through people who are organized but also associated with, that exchange these discussions, but also exchanges in trade as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You cannot have, you know, it starts from, you know, a nation does not come up just out of nowhere, right? You have to have, you know, individuals that make a family, right? And then those families together make a community. Communities together make a hamlet or a town, and then towns together make a county. Counties make states, and then states from there make nations.
I may disagree with you on the very basis of when it comes to a nation, but I think I'll digress on this one.
That's all right. You know,
Rambo, I sent you a friend request, by the way.
Oh, okay, thanks. Wait, where is it?
Oh, in Discord.
Oh, hold up. Let's see.
But I'll be honest, like, suburbs are just failure, and we keep on building them like straight up idiots, and we literally screw up farmland and screw out our food shortage, you know?
Yeah, there's something. Like, I've noticed that, especially here in the state of Indiana, which is a very agricultural heavy state, where I've seen on the outskirts of places where, you know, what used to be, you know, agricultural fields, you know, of course for corn and soy, because it's basically the only two cash crops you can probably grow in the United States anymore. But they, you know, you have these plots that used to be, let's put it this way, they were productive plots, all of a sudden taken over, and now you have these cookie cutter Hollywood style prop sets of what an excuse for a house basically coming up and taking over. It's like, oh, starting in the low 300s and 400s. Nobody can be able to afford that, you know, out of anything. You know, this is ridiculous.
And I'll bring it up. Like, I was trying to change it earlier about the food shortage and the meat problem. we could blame that on the vegans on wanting everybody to go to vegetarians, you know?
No, that's absolutely. I get what you're saying with that, but that's absolutely not true. Vegans are nowhere near the majority of what they think they are. Honestly, most people are going to be eating meat, and that's the thing. You start taking away people's, especially here in the United States. Once people can't get a hamburger or anything in line, they're going to start to they'll start to freak out. And then maybe you'll have something happen in the United States. I don't know, the Great Burger War. McDonald's shuts down, or like that. What was that? I don't know if you guys have seen the Boondocks. I love that show when it came out. But the episode where basically the KFC run-in for the show runs out of chicken, and the whole town goes into, and the whole country falls apart, and basically you have like the start of basically a Mad Max style apocalypse, basically from no chicken. Something like that ridiculous would get the United States into a very bad state.
Hey, Dimitri, listen to this. Hamburger World War One. Good, ain't it? Burger World War One.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, and that's the thing while we're talking about this, we want our country. That's why we call it the American Rail Club. We want our country to be successful. We want our, we see rail and transit as the steel bloodlines of America. The way, it's what helped the country, it was what built the country to become the industrial economic power it is today. Without the railroads, you would not have had that in America.
And then we didn't want to shoot up our arms, our blood veins with car drugs, aka the car. Oh, am I right?
Yeah, and it's like, again, let me bring up the picture again if I have it over here. Here we go. Uncle Sam, ripped Uncle Sam with the Pennsylvania Railroad and a whole bunch of Shermans, I think, underneath. But that's the problem. It's that was the image of America before, and now what? It's like everybody makes fun of caricatures of a fat Sloven Uncle Sam that's just beholden to corporate interests. It's just it's a very sad image of our country that is what it's become today, and it's like you don't see that anymore. It's just sad.
And Dimitri, what railroad do you think? What Class 1 railroad do you think is going to be a fallen flag next, and what railroad do you think is going to be a Class 1 next?
I'm not quite sure. Honestly, I see, with the issues going on, it's going to be supply chain related and precision schedule railroad related, honestly. That's going to break apart the freight railroads and our lines. Because that's been a thing, and that's been breaking communities, right? Because you have a lot of conductors and train drivers that have lost their jobs through the economic downturn, and through, of course, if nobody got the jab, we're taking them out of the job. So they just, you have a whole lot of people that just quit for numerous reasons. Either because of economic reasons from before the start of the onset of it, or because of moral reasons later after on.
Yeah.
Regardless, you still have less people working for a now broken supply chain system, for now a company that's beholden to shareholders on trying to pinch every single penny for maximum profit through precision scheduled railroading. I know that's a mouthful, but that's what's going on right now. Or that's the result of it.
I'll be honest, the two railroads that I think are going to be fallen flags are BNSF and Norfolk Southern. Like, those two railroads, I'm probably going to say are probably going to be fallen flags, because let's be honest, with how they're doing stuff and the high-vis policy that BNSF is doing, did think that are going to screw them up. I do think CXX might survive this, because they did Bob Pan Am up in north. Like, though, they have a whole bunch of tracks up north, all the way up to Maine there. And the thing is that I do see Union Pacific and Norfolk Southern surviving, because, let's be honest, them railroads, they survived through so much crap it ain't even freaking funny,
Yeah.
But I do see BNSF and CXX, like, more likely BNSF being the one that gets oofed, and CXX being the one that got out of the alive, but spared.
I was gonna say CSX first, honestly, because they've been having a mess in that company for quite a bit.
Well, recently they've been getting their act together. Like literally, they just bought a whole rail system up in the Northeast from New York all the way up to Maine. So they're expanding out.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it's again, it has to do with the company and corporate culture of everything that has presided since precision scheduled railroading, right? And CSX since before has had a very shaky foundation, and you know they may be trying to turn a better leaf now, but is it going to be too little, too late? That's kind of the issue.
Yeah, that's why I say I see CSX like it right now 50-50 with how everything like they might get out of it a little scathed and alive, or they just might get sucked into it and get through. BNSF, they're right now on hot water anyway. Like crap that's going on with BNSF, is not funny. Like they might get oofed bad. And I'll bring it up. I do see the probably next class 1, a railroad that used to been a class 1, coming to class 1 again. Do you know what railroad I'm talking about?
Which one?
The Florida East Coast.
I don't think it's going to become a class 1. That's the thing. If they're staying in their lane, they don't need to go more than where they are right now. They have Brightline doing its own sort of thing, and spreading the gospel of passenger rail throughout the United States, right?
I know. But I do see them might become a class 1 again because let's be honest, they're a regional right now. They're a class 2, not a short one, but a class 2.
Yeah, it's a class 2, and it's been a class 2 for a pretty long time. But they don't. That's the thing. They don't need to expand out of there. It's like for what purpose? They're doing very well in their own lane right there, and they got Brightline going on, and they got Florida itself has been getting a heck of a lot more freight and supply and goods coming in through the port of Miami because of the backdrop in Los Angeles.
You don't have to expand to buy more railroads. You don't have to expand to buy more railroads or build more wine. Like Montana Rail Link almost became a class 1 before it got duped by BNSF. It was nearly there. And just think about it. Florida East Coast, they don't have to expand out. All they have to do is keep on making more and more money and making the capacity more, and then they'll automatically become a class 1 again, only in Florida, but nowhere else.
Yeah, and again, it's just the scale of that where it goes through. I mean, it could happen, but I don't see that at least in the short term, honestly, where things are going. But
yeah,
maybe.
Now, yeah, I do see some more railroads up north becoming class 1, like the Redington and Northern, and the Wisconsin and Southern Railway. I do see them becoming class 1 if they keep working on their railroads and improving,
Yeah. Anyway, guys.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is now 11:16. We're right there. So I think we did well for our first lounge. I think this we got everybody to talk and stuff. I wanted to make it for a stage for you guys to be able to speak. I know you guys want to hear from me, some of the things that I have to say on some subjects, but we're trying to get you guys to speak. But I think this was great. I really do think this was a good thing to just bring up random topics and just talk about stuff. So it kind of redirects a lot of our energies into here instead of kind of taking away from the normal live streams talking about news. But again, I think you guys have enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for the
subscribe.
Yeah.
And we hope you have a good night. Am I right, Demetrius?
No, I think you're right on there, David. So again, thank you for that. All right, folks. Thank you all. No worries. Thank you all for.
Have a nice night, guys.
You too, man. Thank you all for joining on board. We appreciate you all for joining on this first lounge live stream of the American Rail Club. We will see you all at another lounge or a next live stream or maybe another video coming up next time. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you know when the train arrives at the station next time. We will see you on board next time. Godspeed, everyone, and good night.